Welcome our commissioners. At this point, I will not declare a quorum, and we have a quorum. So we have 4 of the 5 elected officials at the table, and 1 is in eyeshot. So I'm going to go ahead and declare all 5 present. I'm going to set the agenda as published. If there's no objections, we will set it as published. I want to thank you all at this point for coming out tonight. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. We have another 3 items on second reading, and then 5 resolutions and a 79-page packet to go through, which is kind of light for us. So we should move quickly to tonight. At this time, I'm going to ask the Board of Commissioners and everyone in attendance to stand, and I'm going to recognize our Fire Chief, Mr. Jamie Luffman, for the invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, everyone in attendance. If you would, pray with me, please. Our Father, we praise you for this event and your purpose in it. We know that when we gather together, you always have a divine agenda. We love you for that, Father, that even when we have done what you have asked, the results are so much greater than we could ever have imagined. Even in failed attempts, you blow us away with your faithfulness to provide what we need. Our prayer today is that your will be done through this event. Take what we have prepared and multiply our efforts as only you can. Steer our intentions to align with your righteous will. Remind us of your faithful provision when our efforts fail us or fall short. May all glory go up to you when we reach the finish line and climb over benchmarks. Blanket us with your peace today, Father. Keep us physically safe and guard our hearts and minds from pride. Keep love at the forefront of our minds today and the guiding light for all we set out to accomplish and celebrate. Inspired by your grace, the psalmist wrote in Psalms 34:18, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." Tonight we pray and lift up our neighbors, your children in West Tennessee, as they begin to mourn and repair their loss due to the floodwaters. Father God, the citizens and businesses here in Mount Juliet know all too well their pain. Now I pray, as we all do, for them to receive the strength and courage you blessed us with. May they soon celebrate the recovery and give you all the glory. In Christ's name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. If you'd like to follow along with us tonight, our agenda can be found online at the city's website. We also have some agendas in the pockets by the doors there if you'd like to follow along. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of August 9th, 2021. Is there a motion for the approval? And, is there a second? Second on the floor. If there's no objections, we will adopt the minutes as written. Seeing none, we will move to citizen comments. At this point, I will ask you if you would like to comment on any item, whether it's on the agenda. You can come forward and be recognized. If you come to the podium, I'll ask you for your name and address. And at that point, I'll recognize you to speak to the commission and address everyone for 3 minutes. We ask you to try to keep your comments as brief and as concise as possible. We can't answer questions from the table tonight, but we're here to hear your comments. So if you would, please come forward and be recognized. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Lynn Yeager, 232 Battalion Way.
All right. Mr. Yeager, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of Rehab 23. The commission is well aware of what we are, what we do, what we have been accomplishing over the last 8 years. But we have our mission statement that says that our sole mission is to provide needed support to the 600 plus first responders here in Wilson County. Consistent with that, we are working in conjunction with the fire department of Mount Juliet, the chiefs, to conduct a pancake breakfast this Saturday morning at Charlie Daniels Park in the community center for the benefit of the Jordan Hastings family directly related to his son, Knox. 100% of the proceeds will go to the Hastings family. All the costs related to the event will be borne by Rehab 23 and/or local donations. To date, we have the following local companies and locations that have supported us. Courtney's is going to provide over 300 sausage patties. Houston's is going to do the same thing. Crackle Barrel is going to provide our butter and the syrup. And Just Love Coffee will provide all of our coffee. I'm happy to report that as of tonight, independent of everything else that is going on from the GoFundMe pages, et cetera, that we have received donations of $3,000. Earlier today, it was $2,500. Now it's exceeding $3,000. Anyone liking to make a donation can drop them off at either of the fire stations and have checks made out to Rehab 23. Again, it's Saturday morning from 8 till 11 at Charlie Daniels Park. Tickets are $10. I've got some tickets. I'll be here if anyone's interested to secure tickets or to make a donation to the event. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Paul Trice. I live at 3356 Countryway Road, Antioch, Tennessee.
All right, Mr. Truss, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm here to address the accusations against Commissioner Mullally. I'm a simple man leading a simple life, and I actively and intentionally avoid conflict whenever possible. But when issues like this force its way beyond my comfort zone and threatens the well-being of a friend like Commissioner Mullally, that's when I'm forced to rise up and take a stand. When I got news that my dear friend has been accused of racism, I was outraged. So let's revisit Webster's dictionary definition of racism to clarify my position. Racism, a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. So with that said, I've been on this planet for 60 plus years, and I know true racism when I see it. I can smell it a mile away. This does not apply to my dear friend Jennifer. I've known her for over 30 years. I know her family. I know her character and her spirit. And as God is my witness, this woman is not a racist. I've had a chance to review the so-called evidence against my dear friend. I looked at it very carefully, and the result was a number of emotional reactions. First laughter, then shock, then finally outrage. Not at the accused, but the accuser. I consider it a personal insult to know that the vice mayor is using this false so-called racism as a political weapon to humiliate and destroy this woman and a good friend, when I have personally experienced the true definition of racism. My fear is, as the present cancel culture is so hyper-bent on pushing this new narrative of the false definition of racism in the current manner in which it's doing now, when true racism raises its ugly head, it will slip underneath the radar because everyone is so focused on the false redefinition of racism. In closing, I've concluded that this isn't a political issue nor a social issue, but a spiritual issue. And as the gentleman who was up here praying, I believe the Spirit is present in this chamber now to evoke the following. Need I remind the members of this commission the 9th commandment? Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Mayor Manis, Commissioner Mullally needs to be heard. Please let her speak, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir. Oh. Name and address for the record, please.
Pete Mullally, 217 Sunny Acre Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Mullally. You are recognized for 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm here to address the Vice Mayor's inexcusable behavior during the August 9th meeting and how he was allowed to have an open platform to assassinate my wife. His character by the mayor and attorney with no restraints. It's apparent the Vice Mayor is more concerned about trying to defame Commissioner Mullally than taking care of city business. I know that everybody who's been attending these meetings has surely noticed the escalation of the Vice Mayor's demeaning and disrespectful rants towards her. I've expected some heated debates, but this has far exceeded it. So here we are again with a Vice Mayor making slanderous claims in his usual sophomore style, trying to do a political hit job on Commissioner Mullally and running to the media to spread fake news. Is it just me? Or is it obvious that these are signs of the Vice Mayor's desperate attempts to destroy her reputation because of his incompetence to debate her on agenda items, and therefore taking it from a business level to a personal level? And that's all. Commissioner Mullally deserves to be heard. Let her speak.
Thank you for your comments. Name and address for the record, please.
Dale Vines, 105 Ray Drive.
All right. And you're recognized for 3 minutes.
After the last board meeting, it became unbearable for me to sit idly by and watch Vice Mayor Justice disrespectfully talk down to a woman board member and yell at her with a raised voice to shut up. I have observed this same behavior in other meetings. Instead of interrupting a public business meeting over live TV to bring up your resolution, why didn't you call a private meeting to resolve this issue the appropriate way? I grew up in a generation where women knew their place in society. Very few were involved in politics or corporate power positions. They stayed home, they raised kids, or held factory jobs and voted like their husbands told them to. The husband was head of household, period. Today, women have realized their potential, and now they sit beside, equal to, some of the most powerful people in the world. Does Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, or Queen Elizabeth ring a bell with you? But some men today still insist on keeping their power intact. They dictate their bully mentality to everyone around them, control all the money, and dole out an allowance to their families. Some are even abusive toward their spouses, physically, mentally, and emotionally, by using intimidation tactics to control every situation. These men have considerable problems when empowered women challenge them. When people talk about racism, they're usually referring to color of skin, different cultures, and in large part, just different. However, racists can be leftover bullies who don't respect women's opportunity to be equal to them. This includes abuse when they disrespect and demean women. How can you possibly interpret Commissioner Mullally's post to be racist, bigoted, or hateful? You put your own spin on them and created your own narrative. That's what insecure politicians do. Since you were not successful in getting a legal ethics investigation on her, you chose to change the verbiage
Ma'am.
to a moral obligation. I'm ending right now. Do you really want to go there, Vice Mayor? When Jesus came upon the woman being stoned at the well, he said, "He that is without sin, morals, among you, let him cast the first stone at her." Who in this meeting would like to cast the first stone at Commissioner Mullally? Line forms to the right. Let her speak and be heard, commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Shepard Clark, and I live at 217 Old Town Drive in the Del Webb Province, Belmont.
Thank you, sir. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Just a couple issues. Number one, a few meetings ago, we heard that the RM8 zoning issue was tabled until January of 2022. At that council meeting, Mr. Justice stated that we all needed to become, quote, educated, unquote, as to the realities regarding zoning issues. Because in his words, we had been supplied information specifically designed to anger us with, quote, rhetoric created to be self-serving, divisive, and manipulative, unquote. Additionally, in an email to my wife, re this same zoning issue, Mr. Hefner offered to arrange a meeting with himself and the Director of Public Works to, quote, walk us through the impact that larger subdivisions have on the immediate and surrounding area, unquote. And we would like to take him up on that offer sometime in the next couple of months before the holidays. We'll be in touch tomorrow to arrange a date when we can be educated as to why this zoning change is a good thing for the city, as Mr. Justice and Mr. Hefner have indicated they believe. Second issue, we understand there are some allegations that have been made against Jennifer Mullally, and as concerned citizens, we'd like to hear the full scope of what she has to say and would ask that you give her ample time to do so. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, I'm Gina Clark, 217 Old Town, and I have to say for once I agree with my husband on both points and would really ask that Jennifer be allowed to speak and state her opinions and position. And I've also brought with me a number of her other constituents who also would like to hear her full story. So we're all here to listen tonight and hope that that can be accommodated.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Nick Polk, 414 Silver Springs Lane, down
Okay.
Juliet.
You're recognized for 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioners, thank you for your time and opportunity to speak. Today, I want to thank Vice Mayor Justice for proposing the resolution for the city of Mount Juliet and its leaders to denounce racism, religious discrimination, sexism, and hate speech of any kind. I also want to thank all of those who voted to pass the resolution. As I'm thankful that this resolution with such strong language that opposes hate speech and discrimination passed, I'm disappointed in the scenario from which it emerged. As the Vice Mayor said, there is no room for hate speech, racism, and bigotry in the city of Mount Juliet. It will not be tolerated, and it will be called out every time. And that is why I'm calling on Commissioner Mullally to do the responsible thing as a leader and resign. Commissioner Mullally's tweets and retweets were disgusting and reprehensible. Her tweet related to Muslims in this country were both Islamophobic and anti-Semitic. It also dishonors the Muslim Americans who put their lives on the line and those who have died for this country and its people. The commissioner's tweet regarding George Floyd is not only racist, it takes light the murder of a man through police misconduct. So while Commissioner Mullally was tweeting racist jokes about a man's murder, our police were denouncing the acts of Derek Chauvin and reaching out to our community to ensure us that our police do not act that way. Our police demonstrated a higher standard than one of our commissioners who makes decisions regarding the management of our police. The commissioner had an opportunity to repent her actions and to redeem herself by voting for the resolution proposed by the vice mayor. Instead, Commissioner Mullally claimed that passing the resolution was quote unquote dangerous, and she doubled down on why her tweets were not racist and that her right to freedom of speech was being violated. After the meeting, she posted a video defending her actions in which she defends her retweeting of a tweet that said, quote, Black culture promotes abortion, drugs, and black on black murder. And she follows that retweet in saying, because that's an actual fact. So, based on one tweet from a stranger, Commissioner Malele has made the claim that Black folks generally support abortion, use drugs, and are murderers. She said, that's actual fact. The commissioner's lack of humility to apologize for her actions, failure to understand why her tweets were racist and discriminatory, opposition to the past resolution, and use of her office to proclaim anti-Black rhetoric demonstrate why Commissioner Malele is unfit to serve her office and lacks the leadership capabilities to be an example to those she represents. If Commissioner Malele refuses to step down from the office she holds, I urge the rest of the board to pursue disciplinary action that is proportionate to her hate speech. No American of any
Sir, you've
race...
reached your limit.
This is last sentence. No American of any race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or gender should need to worry about being excluded from their representative, let alone worry about being attacked by them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Gerard Bullock, 330 Forest Bend Drive. I didn't bring my notes.
You are recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Hey, so first, all commissioners and mayor, I want to thank for everything you've done for the city so far. I really appreciate everything you've done for the business community and just the community at large. But, you know, I really like the past gentleman said, you know, the three of you that passed that resolution, it makes you proud to live here. You know, I moved here back in 2015. It makes you proud that we passed that resolution speaking out against, you know, racism as a whole. But really, I want to thank everybody, even for this entire situation, because me personally, as a father, right, I have 4 children. 3 of them wield deadly weapons called cell phones, right? And I tell my children all the time, be careful what you post, because if you have to explain it later on, you probably shouldn't have put it out there in the first place. Usually I use like a horse's rear end as the analogy, but today we're going to use toothpaste. Once you get that toothpaste out the tube, it's out there. You can't get it back in the tube. That's it. For me, my kids look at the TV, you know, they see the athlete that says something crazy or does something, and then he comes back and retracts it and things like that. But this one hits right in the backyard, right? So we're pretty close to home here. And really, all I have to do is tell my children that if you say things like that, like my son, right? He's 20 years old. My daughter's 18. They tweet stuff. They on Snapdagram and Twit chat and Facegram or whatever it is, are on that all the time. And, you know, pretty much I tell them, be careful what you put out there, because you never know what's going to end up on the TV or in the city commission meeting minutes. You just don't know. So what I'm saying is thank you. And all the parents that are home that are watching that have told your kids over and over again, be careful what you put out there. This is what happens when you do that. So I don't know what comments were, you know, how they were intended or whatever, but look where we are now. Look what's going on and look what we're talking about, because we decided we want to put something out there and now we got to explain it. I'm sure there's a logical explanation behind all this, of course, but it helps me as a father tell my kids, hey, this is what happens. So again, I'd like to thank all of you so much for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I think I'm the anomaly at the podium at this moment. My name is Brenda Harper. My address is 154 Karen Drive, Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
Thank you, Ms. Harper.
Thank you. And thank you all for having me and inviting me to stay for a minute. I want everybody to know and realize that September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. I am a volunteer for the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. So one of the things that we do during the month of September is to promote awareness even more so during that month, because in 2019 in Tennessee, we lost 1,220 Tennesseans to suicide. 33 of those individuals were right here in Wilson County. So we have work to do to increase awareness and increase everybody's understanding of this. So one of the things that Mayor Manis did for us was he proclaimed September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month here in the city of Mount Juliet. Last year, some of you all may have seen a tree out beside the museum that I worked with Kenny Martin, and we got that in place so people could tie a ribbon on that tree in remembrance of anyone that they know who has been lost to suicide. We now have a bench, I understand, because one of our Mount Juliet citizens was so moved by that recognition that suicide is a real thing that happens here in our community. So 1st of September, those ribbons will be back in place. So I invite anyone who has known someone that has been lost to suicide, you can take one of those ribbons, write their name on it, tie it on that tree, just to recognize that family, that loved one that we've lost. So again, thank you for having me, and I appreciate being here.
Thank you so much.
I noticed
Your
while
name and address for the record,
oh,
please.
Deborah Vines, 2214 Fawns Creek Crossing, Mount Juliet. I noticed while Mr. Bullock was speaking that the clock reset, and he got an extra minute to speak. So I'm also asking for 4 minutes as a matter of equality. It reset. It did.
My mistake.
That's okay. I'm just
I
saying
did
he got
not-
4 minutes.
I did not stop it after Mr. Polk, and I noticed it, so I did reset it. Yes, it was.
I have him listed as starting at 6:51 and concluding with Miss Harper starting at 6:54. I did notice the clock did not start.
Okay.
So-
Well, I figured that would be the answer, but I thought I would ask.
And
just
that
for
is the
equality.
answer.
That was totally
Just
my
for
mistake,
equality's
and I
sake.
apologize.
Okay. I want to speak today because I am not a person that likes politics at all. I despise politics, and I despise it for the reasons that we saw in the August 9th meeting here in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. The thing is, I never
Ms.
expected we
Vines,
would
you've
see
been
that.
recognized to speak once already. Am I correct? Or did I write this down wrong?
No, her
That
husband
big-
spoke. or
Okay,
somebody
that
else
was
spoke.
more of my time gone right there.
Yes.
Okay.
I restarted your time after you started talking.
All right.
Please continue.
I watched the August 9th board meeting this morning for 2 hours. That's what I did. I actually rearranged my schedule and watched it for 2 hours because I wanted to see what all the buzz was about. And my understanding is this, that Vice Mayor Ray Justice said in June of this year, he received screenshots. Most of them were resent, in other words, retweets. So these were not original posts. These were retweets. And I myself had retweeted things that compel thought. Okay. All of these things could be looked at in any context. I retweet them as an educated person. I am both licensed as a mental health provider, bachelor's, master's, and post-grad work. I think compelling thought is a good thing. I think in our society, several things were mentioned. One of those being in Mr. Bullock's context, that regarding the Constitution, we have a right to post on social media without limits to some degree. Those were Vice Mayor Justice's comments. So which types of speech are not protected by the First Amendment? Is racism one of them? Do I condone racism? Absolutely not. No, I don't condone any demeaning of any human being on the face of this earth, ever. But actually, there are 9 categories that are not accepted in terms of the First Amendment. And in case you guys don't know, obscenity, fighting words, defamation, including libel and slander, which I would claim occurred at that meeting, but not by the hands of Commissioner Mullally. Child pornography, perjury, blackmail, incitement to imminent lawless action, true threats, solicitations to commit crimes. Those are the exceptions. So in my understanding, the First Amendment has not been violated here. Mr. Vice Mayor Justice said, nowhere in my life is there room for hate speech. Nowhere in my life is there room for racism or bigotry. However, there's a Nashville Scene article that was published in 2015 that specifically says, in between pictures of his children, Justice, a Trump supporter, regularly posts on his Facebook page about his problems with immigrants and Muslims. This was published in the newspaper. They're also published in the newspaper about his arrest for domestic violence, aggravated burglary, and vandalism. So I just want to say this. I have a lot more I could say, but I'm going to stop. That if this is the person that is bringing this accusation, But I have a question about the constitution of this board altogether, because I think that at the very least, someone who has been accused and had 2 restraining orders, a bankruptcy, an arrest, who talked about the oaths he has taken to the U.S. Constitution and Tennessee.
It's fine. You've exceeded your time.
Okay. And that somebody who has put himself in that position, and he talked about those oaths, but yet it was after taking those oaths when this man was arrested. He had 2 different restraining orders against him. I think we need to question the integrity of what was brought to the table on August 9th. Otherwise, we're no better than Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Ms. Vines, for your comments. Please, decorum, please. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record.
Jim Ligon, 13895 Lebanon Road and 14001 Lebanon Road. And I want to speak tonight about the rezoning of the Mccluskey Pile property. You know, after 4 months, we're still here. And I think there are some disadvantages to this. Number one, the sewer. There's not, again, been resolved as where the sewer will come to the property. I know there's been a lot of activity in front of my house as far as to measure where the sewer would come down. But as I understand from the utility department, it is good through 13895, it becomes an issue and going to have to be a variance. And so therefore, if there's no sewer, don't see how we can rezone this to RS15. And the bottom line to this is, and why we've been, as much as I don't want to see the property develop, the reason we're here and the reason what you're talking about is rezoning from RS40 to RS15 and a commercial retail on the front. So the property, when the developers bought it, was RS40. There's no change there. So all we're doing is increasing more houses per acre, which to me is a disadvantage. Obviously, the more houses lead to more issues. From the standpoint of me as a farmer, that means more kids, more pets. As we all know, kids are looking for green places to play. When you've got that many houses stacked in there, they're going to be looking for places to get. They cross the fence. They take their dog with them. The cow with a new baby calf, she's protecting the calf from the dog. The dog runs to the kids and issues develop. You know, as much as we don't want that to happen, that's the reality of it. The other issue is many people who move into houses in subdivision don't realize that a Kroger garbage or grocery bag will kill a calf in a heartbeat. They're going to consume that bag, stops up their digestive system, kills them within 2 or 3 days. Also, shrubbery is very toxic to animals. So that becomes an issue as far as, you know, they think they're doing right. Hey, the cows want something to eat, and they throw it over the fence. My concern is you got to understand, you know, my cattle operation, I have exported cattle to Canada, to Mexico, and have sold over $500,000 worth of cattle to Eastern Europe. So these are not your run-of-the-mill cattle that we have here. So that becomes a concern. Also, then the traffic issue. Okay, you've got more traffic on Highway 70. I know pulling a trailer into the place was easy. Surprisingly, when it was a 5-lane, then we had a Dollar General. It's gotten harder. We had another strip mall on the front. It's going to get harder. And of course, then the big thing for me is the disruption of the underground water. I depend on that spring to water the farm. You start building that many houses, what kind of disruption we're going to have? Will I have the water to flow? All I ask is I want to be able to continue to farm as my forebears have done. You know, we've owned that property since 1787, and I want to continue to be able to farm it and make a living. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Brian Criswell, 439 Sunset Drive.
Thank you. Recognized for 3 minutes, sir.
Given recent events at the Board of Commissioners meeting on August 9th, I wanted to remind the public that there is a remedy for when a commissioner no longer represents the views of their constituents, but their actions don't rise to the level of an ethics violation. In the November 2012 ballot, the citizens of Mount Juliet voted overwhelmingly to amend the city's charter by including a recall provision for elected officials. In other words, let's say you live in District 4 and you believe that the District 4 commissioners' views are no longer representative of a diverse and culturally accepting public, then you do have recourse. Under the amended charter, a recall election is a procedure by which voters can remove an elected official through a direct vote before his or her term has ended. Recalls are initiated when a sufficient number of voters sign a petition. The number necessary is 32.5% of registered voters. So in my example from District 4, if a resident of District 4 were to initiate a petition using the right verbiage and obtain 2,387 signatures from registered voters in District 4, then without any further involvement from the Board of Commissioners, those citizens will have exercised their right to initiate a recall election, the results of which would be legally binding, making it possible to replace that commissioner midterm. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Is there anyone else who has any comments for the commission? All right, seeing none, we will close citizen comments. At this point, our next item on our agenda is the commissioner reporting comments. This is limited to 5 minutes per City Code Section 220. But at this point, I'm going to make a motion that we suspend the rules for the purposes of allowing commissioner comments to extend an additional 5 minutes for a total of 10 minutes. I have a second. It is on the floor at this point. I'll apologize for my mistake at the last meeting. I allowed debate on this item, and I do not believe it is a debatable item, so I will call for the question on the suspension of rules. All in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. Any opposed? With that, the suspension counts. The suspension of the rules is in effect by a vote of 5-0 at this point. So with that, we will move straight into commissioner reports, and I'll recognize the District 3 Commissioner, Scott Hefner.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out this evening. Obviously, a lot of passion in this room tonight. Anger. It's probably one that jumps to the top of my head. I was actually going to keep my report down to literally 30 seconds, but given the comments that were made by some of the citizens that are here tonight, I'm going to expand that a little bit. So I want to address Mr. Polk. You seemed kind of angry. I by no means meant any disrespect when I made the comment about creating a workshop so the citizens can learn about RM8 and my proposal to reduce the minimum acreage from 20 to 10. I wasn't implying that you're not educated, but I felt like I needed to bring in some experts to talk about the reality and the low probability of Section 8 housing coming in under a 10-acre RM8, which is what I was accused of doing or trying to do on a Channel 4 newscast. So for that, I apologize. You felt like I was undermining you there. So, and I will have that workshop in the very near future. I'm just going to make one statement as it relates to the August 9th meeting. It was disappointing for me as a commissioner to sit here and listen and go through that. I felt horrible for the citizens that were watching and were here in person. I felt like that was a waste of time. But I will say there is one but. I will say that this didn't start on August 9th. If you go back and look at 15 minutes after I was sworn into office and sat behind this desk, I was accused personally of having a financial interest in trying to pass an ordinance that would waive the beer license requirements of 5-1 as account of the pandemic and the governor's executive order. That's how I started as a commissioner in this city. It's 15 minutes into my role here. And it went on from there. I'm pretty thick-skinned. It takes a lot to really upset me. I'm a pretty even-keel guy. But when I'm called out personally, either in this sacred chamber or publicly on social media or on a news station, I feel compelled to stand up for what I believe and defend myself. That being said, change the gears a little bit. My heart, my prayers and thoughts go out to the family members of the survivors of the 21 individuals that lost their lives due to the flooding in the western side of Nashville, plus the dozen that are still missing. Very sad what has happened over the course of the last few days. And please keep everyone in Dickerson, Hickman, Houston, and Humphreys County in your thoughts and your prayers, because they're going through a lot right now. And as we know here in Mount Juliet, we know exactly what they're going through. So please, thoughts and prayers to those family members. Term limits is coming back. It's coming back sooner than what I originally had thought was going to be a year from the time it failed to receive a second. And is coming back as a referendum, as I originally was proposing. So be on the lookout for that to hit the agenda within the next 60 days. I have been working diligently on blasting. Most recently, I'm also a member of the Planning Commission, and most recently have imposed a 500-foot pre and post survey be done. Its current state requires 300 feet, so I'm expanding that by 200 feet, and those have to go out by certified mail. I have also restricted the blast charges to be cut in half. Currently, state law allows up to a maximum of 2 feet per second, and I've reduced that to 2 inches per second. I've reduced that to 1 inch per second. So the amount of blasting that can be done within that 500 feet has been cut in half. So these are some measures that I'm taking, and the Planning Commission will also look to do that here in the BOC as these PUDs come through, until we can get long-term laws changed at the state. With that, I'm done with my report. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next up, I recognize District 4 Commissioner, Commissioner Mullally. Recognized for 10 minutes.
Thank you. First, my condolences go out to our financial director and her loss, and as well as the family's loss of the fatal accident on Old Lebanon Dirt Road last week, as well as the loss of life due to all the flooding and the Americans in Afghanistan. Tonight, I would like to put accountability where it's due. It rests solely on the shoulders of the vice mayor because of what he has subjected this city to, because of his bad behavior to inject this poison into the August 9th board meeting with no merit. The responsibility and repercussions of anything that may come our way is owned by the vice mayor and him alone. As a result of his bad judgment, this fiasco has gained attention from national organizations. The accountability and responsibility includes any harm, danger, or injury that may come upon me or one of my family members as a result. You, the public, are judge and jury. As in any court of law, the accused has a constitutional right to be heard before being judged. These chambers should be no different. Not only did I not get that chance, at one point my mic was cut off at the 25:49 mark on the video. The few words I did get had to be fought for, and I commend Commissioner Trivett for helping me get what little I got. Vice Mayor is no different than the media. What he actually did was throw you a bone to chew on. When the media does it, especially at the national level, it's usually to distract us from something. It was, in his case, it was deception and distraction to get the focus off of himself. He played you, and that should make you furious. What he did to me on August 9th at taxpayers' expense was hate speech. His own wording and his own resolution that was approved should apply to him as well. His baseless allegations, which I did denounce, is nothing but his own political opinion. And that's what makes his resolution so bogus and dangerous, is because it's all based on opinion and perception. Perception can be deceiving and damaging. This is one reason I voted against it. I tried to warn how dangerous it was. The way I read it, Vice Mayor has violated 6 points of the city ethics codes. Vice Mayor never once called me for an explanation of the screenshots that go back to 2010. If he had, he would have known that most of these had already circulated last year during the election and were debunked. He sat on them for over a month, waiting for the right opportunity to use them against me as a tool because of his hate and personal spite, with full intentions of doing harm with actual malice. You want to attack me, Vice Mayor? Attack me on my record. Attack me on something that I bring to the table. Vice Mayor has told me repeatedly that perception is reality, and I realize that's the way of the world. But if that's how we live our lives, then we're living in a world full of deception. Truth is the only reality there is, and we should all be willing to search for it. Travis? The silencing of one's voice is the basis for my resolution on the table tonight. And Travis is going to put it on the screen. Accountability for false allegations is the basis for my 2 ordinance amendments tonight that's on the table. Another reason I didn't vote for his resolution is because if you watched the August 9th meeting, then you clearly saw it had an underlying message attached to it. The talking point for supporting the resolution was that it didn't mention anyone's name. If his resolution and wording can be applied to me, it can also be applied to him. Therefore, I ask his constituents to hold him accountable for his own words in his own resolution. That right there is your term limits. I've been told I'm too honest to be in politics. That might be true, but we need more transparent people like me sitting on boards and committees, and you should want that too. Not only in Mount Juliet, but at the state level and the national level as well. The people want us to put an end to this stain, and I plan on ending my part tonight. Vice Mayor, your days of bullying and disrespecting me are over. I have sat on this board for 2 years, listening and putting up with your abusive, disrespectful mouth, meeting after meeting, talking down to me, shaming me, degrading me, yelling at me with hate in your voice, telling me to shut up. Because I'm a woman, you have discriminated against me, even though I have protections under the Civil Rights Act. I have a solid case for slander and defamation, including actionable defamation for impairment and reputation and standing in the community, personal humiliation, and mental anguish and suffering. If that's how you get your pleasures in life, then God help you. You seem to be interested in digging up bones. You have a lot more bones than I do, including a particular video that's very incriminating. But you know what I would never do? I would never bring details of any of that into a BOC meeting while conducting city business. There are other ways of handling such things as this. It does not belong at this table, period. I'm fighting for any future woman to ever sit on this board and their right to be treated equally and be equally respected as the men on this board. But I need to be heard. Because of your public history with women and how you treat them, which is evident in your treatment of and discrimination toward me, I am ending that tonight. I am not your wife, and I'm not your ex-wife. I demand equal respect from you that you give every man on this board. Because if I were a man sitting here, you would not be treating me and talking down to me the way you do. And you can't even look at me. Proof of that is in the camera, because you have never done it to them. This includes eye rolling, snickering, and anything else you do over there in your seat when I'm speaking. In my experience, people who engage in these type behaviors have feelings of inadequacy and inferiority complexes. This ends tonight. I am not a politician, and I will not cave into or submit to political correctness for the sake of appeasement. That's what politicians do to save their political necks. My character, integrity, and reputation is worth standing on. When I leave here tonight or leave this seat for good, I will walk out of here with my head held high. You know what I was thinking? There has to be something bigger here at play other than personal retribution and character assassination. I think this just might have more to do with money, possibly even tied to the massive expansion of the 20-acre reduction for multifamily, the RM8. There are those who stand to make a lot of money on it, but I stand in their way and they want me out. That would be a perfect example of how power and greed works in the political world and how corrupt career politicians in power will stop at nothing to remove those who stand in their way. With the time I have remaining during my term, I am not going anywhere. I will proudly continue serving my district on behalf of the city that I love by serving everyone equally, no matter their race, political affiliations, or religion. I'm a good commissioner and I have served this seat well. I'm proud of my district and respect everyone with no bias or personal agenda. I have a record of that and I proudly stand on it. If you want to judge me, then judge me on that. I would like to thank the public for paying attention. I like to educate you and inform you of what is on the BOC table. Along with that comes engagement. I feel it's our duty to be engaged. I want to thank you for being here and watching on TV and online. To those of you who still stand by me, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Vice Mayor, I'm going to give you the opportunity to clean up this mess you've made and seal up that can of worms you opened, and to scrub clean the stain that you have left on this city.
Quorum, please. Please be seated. Thank you for your apology. To conclude your comments, Commissioner, next we'll recognize our Vice Mayor, Commissioner, and Commissioner District 1, Ray Justice.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We'll move on to District 2, Commissioner Bill Trivett.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chief, for tonight's prayers. I think our city definitely needs it. I'll tell you, every time I come here, it's just those prayers hit me more and more. I'd like to thank the families for coming out tonight and also online. It's always great to see our families, our friends, our neighbors to partake, whether if it's a positive or a negative. But I will also mention, when we have kids in here, I'll tell you, man, that's what we're here for, are these kids every night. I've got 3 myself, and to roll into that also, we just finished up 24 years anniversary for me and my wife this past Monday night. So very blessed husband and father. Let's see, I'm just trying to go down the list. West Nashville, I'd like to second Commissioner Hefner, on the prayers and thoughts for the families that they're dealing with the floods in West Tennessee there tonight. Man, I'll tell you, there's a lot of things on here for my topics. So I'll try and go through these, try and finish these up. Welcome new team members to the fire department. We've got 2 new firefighters that are new members of our force that are out there fighting fires. Our first responders, we're very blessed to have them. Greatly appreciate that. Thanks to the city employees that showed up to the Wilson County Fair this week. My family and I was able to go out there and have some fun, and we really enjoyed that. It was a little hot out there, but still had a great time. Let's see here. Thanks for everyone for the calls this week and the last 2-3 weeks. I've met so many people in Mount Juliet over this fiasco that we're all having a challenge through. Some that are in my district, some are not. But at the end of the day, we're all family and friends. And I'd like to roll into why I got on this board. Is for that reason, family and friends. I don't have an agenda. I'm not a Tennessean, which I wish I was. I've been here since 2013. And August 9th, I stepped out of that meeting because I was so frustrated. I was disappointed. And man, I'll tell you, I get a little emotional. I do. And I'm going to take a deep breath and realize that we're all here. We're here for our neighbors, our families, our friends, our constituents. I hate using that word because at the end of the day, we're all neighbors. And that's why we should treat each other. I did not sign up to go back and forth, argue with people. I signed up for this board here to make an impact of this city. I've got a good background in what I do, very passionate with what I have. And at the end of the day, why are we here? We're here to make our city stronger. Stronger, not tear each other down. Take that in for a moment. As crazy as that sounds, this world is messed up. It is. And we're blessed to live in this city, folks. We are. We're a bunch of, honestly, it's like big brother, big sister, whatever it is at the end of the day. We are. This world, somebody talked about Afghanistan. That's what's going on in the rest of the world out there. We have people fighting, willing to die to get here. And this is what our little city is getting recognized for. As crazy as that sounds, folks, I want everybody to take that in. We're going to, next meeting, this is going to get quieter. Next meeting, it's going to get quieter. And this will pass. It will for our city. But at the end of the day, we have to realize, why are we here? Uplift each other, encourage each other, love each other. As crazy as that sounds. I've listened to these board members behind the scenes. I know what's going on. There's a lot of passion up here, folks. There is. There's a lot of good. And unfortunately, we keep highlighting all the negative. This city needs to focus on what we're trying to accomplish. Leave a legacy for our kids. Hands down. That's why I'm here. I got my daughter, 13 years old, here tonight. She wants to come here every time to learn about government. As crazy as that sounds. How embarrassing is that for our kids? She's old enough to comprehend what's going on. She listens. And we talk about this. So Gerard, thank you for bringing that up. You're absolutely right. We talk about these things with our kids. You can't get it back. Whether it's misunderstood or whatever. Guess what? At the end of the day, we all have skeletons in the closet. We all do. I'm one of them, And I've had to eat crow before. It tastes bad. And I talk about my kids, and I hope I don't go over. I don't have a clock up there, but I am trying to watch my clock on the back wall there. But at the end of the day, folks, I got on this board because I'm passionate about this city. I love it. And everyone that's called out to me, hey, listen, please continue to call me. I want to hear your voice. I want to talk about what we can do to do something better in your area and to do, listen to what's going on. I need to learn more about Mount Juliet, however you want to pronounce it. I want to make sure that I have fun about this, seriously. But our kids, that's why I'm here. I want my kids to be able to have a place to come to, hang out, have fun. And these first responders back here, folks, I'm telling you, I can't thank them enough. Every time I see them, I'm always trying to just praise them just for being out here. Because the rest of our cities outside of Mount Juliet and Nashville and Tennessee, it's ridiculous what's going on in this country. So my voice, I'm telling you, folks, we're blessed to live here. And we need to focus on the positive. And that concludes my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I'll start with my comments by saying I think you make a pretty good Tennessean. So keep doing it. And we do take in a lot of refugees from other states seeking a better place to live. So that's a plus to this community and the people that live here. I would like to also apologize to Miss Vines. I'd written down Vines, had already spoken on the list there, not realizing it was her husband, and that was my mistake. I do occasionally make one. Little joke, I make them all the time, but I apologize for cutting you off on that, and we welcome yours and everyone else's comments here. We welcome you to speak. I thank you for your attendance and speaking. There's a lot of things that are being said right now with a lot of passion. There's a lot of things that occurred before the meeting last week, as was pointed out. So, or a couple of weeks ago that was pointed out. So I'm hoping we can get back to focusing on the business of the city and keep it at that. But changing gears, I do want to say to our finance director, and I hope she's not taking the opportunity to watch this meeting right now, but just wanted to know that our prayers and thoughts are with her and what she's going through and the loss that she's had. And she spoke about this So I just wanted to extend that and let her know that we are thinking about her tonight, and she's with us and in our hearts and our prayers tonight. I also just want to echo what Mr. Yeager said about the pancake breakfast that's going on this Saturday at Charlie Daniels Park from 8 to 11. I want you to know that is for a great cause, and I would ask that anybody that can, and I bet you everybody in this room has plans to eat breakfast Saturday. So unless you're on a fast or something, I expect to see everybody out there with the same passion for this city to come out here and support this young man. He's a son of one of our firefighters out there, and they could really use your support as a city. I do want to get this on the record too tonight. I'll be asking Mr. Jeremy Hayes to represent my seat on the Senior Citizens Board. I do also want to thank the fair for having me out a couple times for both the opening and closing parades to represent the city there. Our fire department and police department did a wonderful showing for you, the citizens, to make you proud out there. The theme of the fair was our hometown heroes, and I got to tell you, they're definitely at the top of the list when you come to thinking about heroes and the difference that they make in this community. You got a board of commissioners up here that's committed to supporting these men and women that work so hard to keep us safe, and it was nice that the fair had taken that on us to represent them too. Miss Harper, who just spoke a minute ago, you can show that to Travis up on the screen there. She had spoke. We had issued a proclamation here for Suicide Prevention Month, it's in the month of September. And it's unfortunate, as she mentioned, there are over 1,020 plus people in the state of Tennessee that have struggled with this, and we've seen lives lost. If you're struggling with a situation like that, and you feel there's no hope, and I don't know that watching this meeting helps, but if you feel there's no hope out there, I'd encourage you to reach out to someone you trust, a trusted pastor. If nothing else, if you'll write this down, and you can text TN to 741-741. Text TN to 741-741. That's the suicide prevention line in the state of Tennessee. I want to bring notice to that and thank Ms. Harper for her efforts in that. It was a pleasure to extend her a proclamation declaring that in the city of Mount Juliet. Also, lastly, I want to mention the city has reached out to the communities that have been impacted by the flooding that so many of you have seen. Waverly, Humphreys, Dixon and Humphreys County, and of course the city of Waverly. We've reached out to them, offered our assistance. It's this point, and it's not surprising after what we've seen with the tornadoes. They're not requesting additional assistance at the moment from the city, and I know we had some time where after the first few days that we were getting things organized, getting roads open, but we're there to help those. And I thank you for the citizens, for the city that you support this city and make that available and make that option and fund that for us to be able to offer that type of support to the communities around us. I know how appreciative we were as a city when the tornadoes hit, and I can speak for myself. Wasn't mayor at the time, but I can say when I pulled onto the parking lot and seen the vehicles and the men and women from the other cities that had come to help Mount Juliet, for me, being in office as a commissioner at the time, meant so much to see that we weren't alone out there and that there were others that were here to offer support. We reached out to them. If you would, and I know you're a generous community, I'd ask you to go to CFMT, that's Charlie Foxtrot, Mike Tango, CFMT.org, and you can donate there to help those victims out, the victims of the flooding. So I'd ask you to keep those people that are searching for their loved ones, those that have lost loved ones, those that have lost everything that they have, all their possessions. I'd ask you to keep them in your prayers and your thoughts. And that's going to conclude my comments for the night. With the conclusion of my comments, I'm going to make a motion that we go back into regular session to end the suspension of rules. Is there any objection to going back into regular session? Seeing no objections, we will move back into regular session. I will recognize the city manager at this point for his report. City manager, Mr. Martin, you are recognized for 10 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Thanks for everybody that's in attendance tonight and for those watching at home as well. I've done a lot of listening tonight, and for somebody that served the city for 32 years, and I've got our deputy city manager up here that's been here going on, I think 33 years. I know what you what you've witnessed lately. I know a lot of people hate that, and I try to stay out of the politics, but as human beings, we're all flawed in some shape, form, or fashion. And I think we all have to give ourselves a little bit of a break as well, because as a society, at least in this particular community, you've all been through a lot. You've been through floods, you've been through winter storms, you've been through tornadoes, you've been through multiple tragedies just in this community alone, and you witnessed a lot of what you've witnessed, not counting the pandemic and other things. And we've lost a lot of wonderful residents. You think about Miss Dana. I had a neighbor call me up as I was working in my yard last, it was getting into the dark, so it was yesterday evening, a sweetheart of a man, to let me know that his wife had passed away just last Monday. 62 years of marriage. As many of you talked about, what we do is for like the little man up here on the front. We live in a very diversified community, and we are not perfect human beings. It's how we handle that adversity is how we move forward in the future. And for somebody to serve this community for a long time, we've got people in this room that were dispatching when 2 officers lost their lives. I was a police chief at the time, so there's a certain amount of responsibility you fulfill for things like that, and have witnessed these kind of situations many times over. But you guys have to give yourselves a break. What we're witnessing every day, not only in this country, in this community, and beyond, is tough on humans as flawed human beings. But I'm proud to see that we can come together, can discuss our differences. And when, just like my wife, who's watching from Crossville, Tennessee, she's at her mom and dad's house. We lost them a few years ago. She taught in this community for 40 years. So she sees daily a lot of people just like her dad did, who served in World War II. The vice mayor likes to call me Mr. Kumbaya. Does anybody remember that? There's a song that's out about that. And I'm willing to bring back the hokey. Yeah, the hokey. We need to be a whole lot more hokey. But what was said tonight by everybody is important, because that's what makes us better, right? We have to correct ourselves sometimes and promise to do better. But we do live in what I feel like is one of the most blessed communities for people like Mr. Yeager and Ms. Harper that was here, and for people that donate benches because their loved ones committed suicide. We're at an all-time high for suicides in this country. And that itself should speak to that. When you see what's happening in Dixon County and Humphreys County and what we dealt with here, and the mayor and this elected body saying, please reach out to those folks. Please see if there's anything that they need. So much so that you're opening up things that you need here. Mr. Yeager, you do a whole lot more, not just throughout Wilson County, people that volunteer their time that have already retired from other jobs to go out and help other human beings. That's who we are, and that's who we're going to have to be going forward. And I know times like this is tough, but it will pass. I look in this room and I see a lot of diversity. And I see a lot of adversity as well, because everything we've got is a challenge. I can just speak to my wife alone. How in the world she puts up with me, I do not know. And she's probably somewhere, and if y'all listen, you'll hear amen, right? You'll hear that. It's tough. So, Mayor, I want to speak to some good things. I want to thank our veterans in particular, our Blue Star families, our Gold Star families, Rehab 23, everybody else that's out there helping other people. And you think of the sacrifices that they're making, not only for this community and this country and beyond, and for other human beings. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. There's 86,400 seconds, I believe it is, in a day. And my challenge is I try to promise myself every day, and I fail more than I succeed, is what are you going to do with those 86,400 seconds? And I'll give you my promises. I know these folks will. And we have to give it to one another, is that we cannot do what we've got to do in society alone. It takes a team effort. And so I want to thank the veterans. I want to thank our law enforcement and everybody else, and our firefighters, and you name it, that makes it possible. And most importantly, the volunteers that do that. And because of that, that's why we live in currently the largest city in Wilson County, Tennessee. So when I came here 32 years ago, there wasn't that many people that lived here. And something has got out. The secret has gotten out that we may fight sometimes, but most time we love one another, right? As hokey as that sounds, there's a reason why more and more people are moving here, is because it's a great place to be. And so I'm going to encourage everybody to keep doing that. And I want to thank our veterans, past, present, and future, for what they do to protect us locally and abroad. That's very important. And the reason I know it's working is that our sales tax numbers came in, Mayor, and sales tax numbers don't sound like that big of a deal. They'll be telling me here in a minute, because I get going, I get to preaching, you'll have to shut me down. Our sales tax numbers just came in for our most recent period. We were sitting here March of 2020, right in the middle of a tornado, my birthday, March 3rd, a pandemic that shortly followed, and wondering about the future of our city. And ever since then, God has blessed this community, and we've exceeded time and time again, sales tax wise. Sales tax is what runs this city financially. It's not the property tax, it's sales tax. And that's because you folks, those folks at home and people outside of here, choose to patronize this community because they want to lift it up. We were at $1.5 million for our last sales tax reporting period. That's up 27.3% over last year. That's phenomenal. And we've got to keep that going. So the way they do that is to keep doing everything we can for this community. And Mayor, I want to make sure I didn't leave anybody out, but there is one other thing that I'd like to brag on a little bit tonight. And there's some people in the room, and their last name is the Patels. And there's a public-private partnership that we've been working on, and show you why it's important to continue to grow, because when new businesses come to our community, not only does it create jobs and opportunity, then we have to create opportunities for people to live somewhere. And so that partnership of dealing with the people we deal with in the community helps us. The vice mayor in particular, and this commission has been saying for years that we need to do all we can to improve the traffic on 70. If you've ever traversed Highway 70 going east as you get up to Golden Bear Road, you know how tough that is, especially if you live back in that community or have to go to the high school. It's very tough. And so because of a partnership, and the folks are here tonight, and I'd almost embarrass them and have them stand up, but I will have, where's Mr. Raj and his dad at? I want to show you something to make you laugh just a little bit. Where's Dad at? I want y'all to stand up just a second. Dad, can you stand up back there? Yes, yes. If y'all are familiar with celebrities, I embarrass this young man all the time and his son. And what do I call you? He laughs about it, but I say he's the closest thing to George Clooney's we've got in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. He looks just like George Clooney. And you just got to have some fun, you know, to work with other people to make our community better. So I will say that we have an opportunity to come up, I think, tonight. And Vice Mayor, you were there last week, and this commission's been working hard to help with the traffic on 70. It may be short term until the state can get with us and help us widen 70. But this short-term traffic improvement, as I like to call it, will not happen without this elected body, its staff, its citizens, and that family back there working together to make it happen. And it will have to help tens of thousands of people. That's what we have to do more of in this society. And I think that's what we got tonight. So I just want to brag on this elected body, staff, and the citizens for these kind of opportunities that come along. And that's how you end up creating opportunities for folks and also making a community prosperous in more ways than one. So I know I rambled on a little bit. Please come out and support the Mr. Knox this weekend with what Mr. Yeager and others are trying to do. That young man and the medical bills that are going to face that family and the amount of stress is unfathomable. I can't even imagine how you can even come to be dealing with something like that. We've all dealt with something like that in particular, but we'll always rise to the occasion. So let's do everything we can to show up for this young man, his family, and all those volunteers and make that a big success. And Mayor, sorry if I rambled on to my elected body, but as I've said to you time and time again, we cannot do what we do as a city and as a staff without our elected body and without our citizens joining together. So I apologize for the hokey dokey and kumbaya, as the vice mayor would say, and usually that's when my theme song follows, but it's not going to happen today. We'll have to save that for another day. So God bless you all, and God bless America. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. With that, we'll move to the business portion of the agenda. As I said earlier, we have 13 items for consideration, so I'll start with the first three that are on unfinished business, the consent agenda. It's items 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3 if you are following along. I'll read the first one on into the record. An ordinance approving the request to connect to the Mount Juliet sewer system for 1082 Cedar Creek Village Road outside the city limits of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, identified as Wilson County, Tennessee, map 50, parcel 42.03. The second item is an ordinance of the city of Mount Juliet to amend, redact the Mount Juliet City Code, section 24-176 fees, Parks and Recreations Department, to allow changes to the fee schedule to be set by the Parks and Greenway Board and approved by the Board of Commissioners and posted on the website and at the Mount Juliet Community Center, and to approve the redaction of all fee schedules as they are updated by each department. The third item, 8.3, an ordinance approving the policy and documentation for organizations requesting grant funding and requiring a biannual audit for organizations receiving over $15,000 or more for any fiscal year. Is there a motion for these three items? I hear a motion and a second. It's properly on the floor. Any comments, questions, debate? Hearing none, I will call for the question. All in favor of these three items, three signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed, abstentions? I have that recorded as a unanimous vote for the three items on the consent agenda. The The next item of business is item 9A, an ordinance of the city of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Code, Section 1622, anti-noise regulations to add subsection A and B to extend the hours to 11 p.m. on Friday evenings, Saturday evenings, and evenings preceding a federal holiday and on the federal holiday. Is there a motion? Have a motion. Is there a second on this item? Have a second. The item is on the floor. Any questions, comments, or debate? I recognize our city attorney. He's
just quickly, we're going to have A stays where it is, B stays where it is. This amendment, if it passes, will be C, and the current 3 devices and vehicles other than horns will be D under that section.
Can you repeat that for me?
Sure. Under 1622 anti-noise, A stays where it is, B stays where it is. The new amendment, if you pass it, will be C, and then the item which is currently a 3 in parentheses, devices and vehicles other than horns, will be small d in parentheses.
Okay. I'll make a motion for that. Is there a second? Second. Here from the Vice Mayor. Any questions or comments on the amendment? All right, all in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. I'm sorry, did I miss you? You were opposition? All right, 4-1. Thank you for the correction. So we're back on the item as amended one time. Any comments, questions on the item as amended? All right. All in favor of the ordinance signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Passes by a vote of 4-1. Next item is 9B, an ordinance to rezone property known as the Mccluskey property, being map 53, parcel 130.02 and 130 parcel 03 from single-family residential RS40 to commercial retail center CRC and single-family residential RS15. Have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, have a second. The item is properly moved and seconded, is on the floor for discussion and debate. Yes, sir, District 2.
Thank you, sir. So I'd like to see if we can have our one of our city officials come up here, because I know that there was some discussion. I don't think Andy is here tonight. Thank you. Mr. Barlow, I was wanting to see by chance if we can clarify some of the concerns that were brought up earlier on this.
I believe the main concern that I know from some of the comments that have been made is the availability of sewer for this property. Actually, it's 2 properties. And so sewer is there to the east of this property. And our general service of sewer availability here, we recommended, obviously, they're going to have something of a pump station, collect all the sewage on the site, be a force main, small force main, come up to the Lebanon Road right of way, and then go east down and daylight basically into the existing sewer system. And so the idea of that, we had some concerns over the location of the West Wilson water line. Worked with West Wilson staff. They went out and actually field surveyed their lines last week to give us a good idea of where that was located. There's I'm going to say about a 50-ish foot pinch point in there, but there is room still to fit it within the right of way. It's going to be close to the back of the curb, but there is room. Maintain 10-foot separation between sewer and clean water. And it's there. It'll be a little bit of a tight area, but that would be part of the permitting process, just to put it within the right of way anyway. Thankfully, with it being a pressure line, it doesn't have to be that deep. There's not a significant amount of disturbance for that type of line that would be going in the ground. So I think it's feasible, yes. And it would maintain with the, despite being a little tight, would maintain with the original plan.
Okay. My other concern would be the sinkholes and caves. Any issues with that?
What we typically do with any sinkholes on a site, obviously a geotechnical engineer is going to have to identify those. If they are to be remediated, has to go through the process of remediation. Any lot that would be within is going to be identified as a critical lot on the plat. It has to be shown, has to be disclosed. Many times with developments, we try to work around those. Oftentimes you'll see those in a common space. But anything that water features, if you get a spring, oftentimes try to avoid those, or something like a sinkhole. You definitely try to avoid those. Many times they'll be in common space, or maybe even in the roadway right away. Even if it's remediated, it's safe.
All right. And then let's see here. I do have one more question, if you don't mind. Well, there's Hillside. I know there was some discussion about using, I guess, connecting that, I guess, as a secondary entrance. Is that still being planned, or is that just as a discussion?
I'd probably leave that up to the development team. I know that has been discussed as part of their development plan. I think the idea from what the last that I had seen is there would be the commercial lots up front, the residential would be off of that existing roadway. But there's the opportunity there that it could be placed in all accessing Lebanon Road and not impacting, I believe it's Hillside Drive.
Is it a recommendation from your Ms. Hamlin for the secondary entrance for Hillside, or is that a concern of any? Because I know that's connecting into a county road, but at the same time, my concern is the first responders. If there is a, some type of an emergency down that road, we want to be able to have our first responders have more than one entrance.
That is a very good point, and probably one of the things that we see sometimes. And we have this within the city where we have a county road going to a city road or vice versa. And there's a little bit of a difference in jurisdiction there. It can create a little bit of a confusion from a maintenance standpoint. Obviously, we know those areas, if they're within subdivisions, if it's snow and ice routes, those are important things that we need to note. Service that we have, which is the brush collection, things like that, those are identified. I would say as a general rule, the more connectivity that you can have in an efficient manner that doesn't cause speeding in a neighborhood. But the more connectivity you can have, the better. If people could either walk, bike, or drive to the commercial lots up there without having to get on Lebanon Road, then you save a trip. People turn on Lebanon Road, just for example. So the more connectivity that you can have, the better is the general rule.
Okay, thank you. I would like to mention, because I know that we had a few families come out and actually discuss this. I guess really what I want to take into consideration, which I know that, the spring, obviously, with this being approved, from an RS40 to a 15, the spring, like I mentioned with, I guess it's their surrounding homeowners, no matter what development's going to be there, that could potentially disrupt that spring that's currently feeding that farm. So whether if we decide to go with 1 acre or 1/3 acres, that's still a possibility. Is that correct?
That's definitely true. Yes.
Okay.
No
Just
matter
want to
the
make sure that
development.
that's stated there.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I am in support of this project because it does give us an opportunity to develop on Lebanon Road and be able to help clean it up. And that is one thing that I look at. And also to mirror to District 3 Commissioners' comments on other projects, which is to bring in affordable housing. Because this developer, he is also, I think they actually are here tonight, all 3 landowners, I believe. I don't know if there's a 4th one or not, but what I would like to mention is that they are all living here within one of our districts. So that to me is the fact that we're actually keeping the development local. So these folks are not from other cities, states, or even I guess other counties is really what I want to sum this up to. They're wanting to keep the revenue here locally. They want to build affordable housing, between $300,000 to $400,000, I think is what we all we're looking at, which is a really low medium income for what we're seeing here within the city. Also, the fact of I am in support of the actual second entrance, so that we can discuss that. Mayor, is there anything, or is there any other board members that would like to maybe discuss with the possible developers, or any questions there?
It is possible.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hefner seeks to be recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify something. I know it's semantics, but I know how semantics can somehow get twisted. So I'm in favor of housing that's affordable for middle income wage earners that have to seek outside the city limits to live. So just a point of clarification on that. So I know there's no bad intentions on your part. I know. So just semantics. I would like to know what's going to be developed here, because I know it's a rezone and it's not required, but I mean, this could be anything. I don't support it because I don't know what's going to go here. So until I see the plans of what is potentially, what it could be concept drawings, but I have not heard anything. And I did support this in the Planning Commission. I was hoping by the time it got to the board that there was going to be some idea, concept or otherwise, as to what was actually going to be here, get built here. So that's my only.
I'll say, Commissioner, I don't think typically we require plans for a rezone, but I do think there were some plans floating around that I saw.
Yeah, I sent an email to the board.
It's not captured as part of the agenda item, and I don't. Do we have representation here tonight from the project? Can you give you an opportunity just to address Commissioner Hefner's questions?
Commissioner Hefner, yeah.
Name and address for the record before you start.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dinesh Kudibandi, 827 Aventura Drive here in Mount Juliet. So yeah, we are part of the owners that own the land, the parcel here on Lebanon Road. Yes. So thank you for the question, Commissioner Hefner. So what the idea behind this development is the front parcel, the parcel fronting the road, about 3 acres, would be commercial. It would be a nice commercial services for the neighborhood, right? As we see more development, more houses being built on Lebanon Road, we want people to have the amenities, whether it's a coffee shop or a donut shop or some kind of a neighborhood service. So that would be fronting the road on Lebanon Road, and the back 9 acres would be very nice, very well built single family homes. And what I mean by that is, in the 15,000 square foot lot, like 1/3 of an acre, you'd have like 2,500, 2,200 square foot home, nice, well built home that's available for people to live here in Mount Juliet and work here. So that's really the plan. Again, it could be anywhere between 25 to 28 lots. It won't be too dense. Again, at 15,000 square foot a lot, it will be pretty spacious. It'll maintain the quality of living. It would have, and then the amenities would be nearby. So that's the idea, right? It's kind of a mixed use. People can live there, people can shop, people can eat. And then obviously people, if they can work here, that's even better, right? So.
Okay. Thank you. Is this coming through as a PUD? It would not? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mullally?
Okay, it's not a PUD, right? Right, okay. I have hesitations about it. I don't have a problem with the front part, the retail part. My issues are more with the back part. And I also am with Commissioner Hefner on that as far as seeing a lot of detail on it. I did get the map you sent, so thank you for that. My concerns in the back part are the flooding. It's not in a FEMA flood zone, of course, thankfully. But the way the water flow, I looked at the map and how that water flows on it. I am very concerned about the natural spring, because I have a situation in my district right now that we're dealing with a spring and in a development cutting off that spring. So I really have a problem with that. And my other biggest hesitation is, since it's not a PUD, and not that you would do it, but what would stop the developer from selling to a rental developer?
I'll take that on as the answer. And if the city attorney agrees, and I would say nothing.
Okay, that to me is a big red flag, because it's happening all over the county. We're surrounded by it. Developers just selling to rental companies. Not that you would do it, but nothing would stop that. So I have a real issue with that, real concern.
Vice Mayor, did you have a comment?
Yes, actually. And I had encouraged them to reach out to Mr. Trivett and have some conversation with him. I'm looking at this. I've got some concerns. One of the concerns that I've got is that we're talking about an RS-15. And the people who are adjacent to that property all have 1 acre lots. And we're talking about putting 1/3 acre lots right up next to it. And I think our zoning, we look for step downs as opposed to drastic changes. That's just one of the points that I look at. So the people that are to the west of this property would go from 1 acre lot, and then the next would be 1/3 acre. I think that's a little bit drastic. I'd also ask for a plan that did something more than just captured a concept, because, and this is one of the reasons that we have notoriously asked for these developments to come in as a planned unit development, so that there were some trade-offs there, so that we could actually, work within the confines of the property to make it a little bit better conforming to the folks around it. I'm not happy with RS-15, and I think that probably an RS-20 would be more appropriate zoning for this particular piece of property. I think RS-15 is a little dense going up right next to the property. So I'm not going to be able to vote for it. The front being the commercial, I think that when we put the land use plan into effect, we went 150 feet deep on Lebanon Road and sponsored commercial for the entire corridor. So I don't have a problem with that part of it, but the density is a little bit too much. And I wish they would come in with a planned unit development as opposed to standard straight zoning. And I agree with Commissioner Mullally. This scares me, because the more dense you get, the more attractive I think it becomes to some of the rental community that we've had to battle recently. And I don't think that's something we need to continue to do. And we certainly don't need to provide them more opportunities than they're already taking. So I'm not going to be able to support that portion of it. At that point, any portion of it, for those reasons.
Well, I believe everybody's had a chance to speak on it. I do have a question myself for the Public Works Director, Mr. Barlow. And that was, did I hear you say there is a path for sewer? And it doesn't involve any private property, all can be done in the right of way?
Just for the property with a connection to the existing sewer. There's a small area there. I know that the developer, they have reached out to that property owner, and I believe they've been successful in obtaining that easement. So all easements necessary have been obtained for them to actually have rights to that sewer.
And there's nothing that needs to go through the state with the highway, or
that will require a grading permit through the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if that's not approved and we rezone this, where does it leave property with no sewer access with RS-15 lots? Doesn't sound like there's anything that can be done with them or the commercial.
No.
Does cause me a little concern with that aspect. I know we've seen the sewer availability letters.
Mm-hmm.
And as right now, the plans, I know somebody up here mentioned connecting to Hillside Drive. Is that going to be a requirement do that, or do we have any opportunities to require that if we're not going through the PUD process?
Our codes state that we are any developments to connect to existing right of way. So per our land development code, they're supposed to make that connection. They have to have a, I'm not sure the term, but a variance, I believe, from our planner. Yeah, a variance to actually not make the connection.
So this would come back through the planning commission to work
Yes.
that portion of it out.
That's correct.
All right. And the water quality issues, is that handled through stormwater as normal?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'll recognize the vice mayor.
I'm a little concerned about, Mr. Barlow, if you don't mind. A little bit concerned about what you said as far as the zoning code. My understanding, if we grant straight zoning without it being, and Ms. Marquetti, if you'd weigh in on this, just to make sure. If we grant straight zoning without any planned unit development, any plan to go into a planned unit development, we can't require them to tie onto a road that we don't own and maintain, which would be a county road, correct?
You can require.
We can?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Is that worked out, I assume, through the planning commission process? Okay.
How does that process work?
You'll go to them for their preliminary plan, and that'll be part of the conditions. I mean, if they can't get in and out and can't do it safely, then that can be a condition or requirement for their approval.
Is the county required to allow connectivity?
They're not required.
And didn't we go through this recently when we tried to annex a piece of property up in, I think, District 4? It's been, I don't know how long ago, and the county said no, that they wasn't going to allow tie into that.
They were not going to widen the road. I remember that.
It's something, yeah, they would not allow the connectivity, and they would not allow us to do something because it was a county road, and they just said no. So I'm not
It can
going
still be
to
a condition, whether or not the county
honors it or not.
allows it or honors it, or they're not successful in the county commission to get that done, and
Okay.
that ends their project, or they redo their project.
I guess a side note for me on that is how can the county deny access when we can't deny access from neighboring neighborhoods? But we don't need to work that out tonight, but.
So talking with Jennifer, our planner, she did say that section is in the subdivision regulations. So the planning commission can grant the variance to that portion for the connectivity. They can.
You're talking about the subdivision regulations for in the county, correct?
No, city. Our own city regulations.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant that subdivision to the west of it.
Correct,
Okay,
right,
I
yeah.
understand.
Anyone else? Just question for the city planner. I've heard of at least one express RS-20. We have no ability to change the application here tonight.
We do not have the capability of changing the application, but I think that you could grant that as just part of your approval should you want to do that.
But if the applicant is agreeable to that,
I don't think the applicant has to be agreeable to that. I think
Okay.
you can vote for that.
all
I
right.
just want to say too, I mean, I feel like our land use plan supports this. It does. The planning commission voted unanimously to support this request. I support this request. If this request came in as a PUD, you'd be looking at 7,500 square foot lots, which you look at every single time I bring a PUD before you. So when I had the opportunity to request that 15,000 square foot lot size or 20, I was jumping for joy because I was glad to have bigger lots, a developer that's coming in here, not asking for any variances, not asking for 7,500 or 5,000 square foot lots that you see every single time. So for me, it's a win for the city. So I hope that you do support this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, motions before we vote?
If I
Let me
could,
recognize- Get your mic on there.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to make an amendment, if I may, to change this from RS-15 to RS-20, single family.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to change from RS15 to RS20, and I assume you mean just the RS15 portion, not the commercial.
Correct. The commercial would stay as is.
All right. Is there a second on changing the zoning? All right, I see a second here. All right, it is on the floor. Any comments, questions, discussions on that?
Before we go any further with this, I am still concerned about this, and I don't know how we eliminate the problem, but I worry about this with these rental properties.
Yeah, I think you get into private property rights there.
I don't disagree with you, but we've seen where that's got us, and we landed with 88 homes over here being, by America's Home for Rent and stuck in the middle of a neighborhood that we had no control over. I'm not comfortable going there again.
Yeah.
Don't want to.
I hear your concern.
Mr. Marchetti, are there any suggestions you might have along these lines to?
There really isn't. I mean, there's been multiple cases saying you cannot restrict a person's use of their home for rental purposes. Now, if they don't maintain it, don't keep it up, et cetera, and so forth, then you can step in with codes violations. But just say whether you own 100 homes or 2 homes, to say you can't rent that house.
Right.
We can't do that.
Anything else?
No, sir.
All right. District 2 Commissioner.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you. I would like to mention or just ask if we can defer this for one meeting so we can get the developers an opportunity to see if this is an opportunity for them to still be able to utilize this property with the possibility of looking at an RS20 and also giving the other commissioners the ability to, to look at what I sent to them. I do understand and I appreciate, the planning commissioner's support on this. We see this every day. But I would like to mention is that these landowners, they're here locally, so they have to work around us. They have to shop around us. They have to be neighbors with the existing property. So these are not a developer that's going to come, build, and leave. I'm not going to speak for them, but I would imagine that they're going to give us a good product. So, so my motion is to defer this for one meeting so we can be able to come back and give them an opportunity to take this all in consideration.
I'll second that.
May I clarify something?
Are you finished, sir?
Yes, I'm finished. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I want to make sure you understand, not questioning anything, but when you bring in a concept plan, that is not to have any binding effect to the city commission. So although you've got a good plan probably, and it looks great and probably works well, there is nothing that binds us to as a PUD would. Planned unit development actually gives us an opportunity to negotiate certain things. There was give and take, and it works through that process. So please don't be offended that I'm asking this, but there are certain things that we have overlooked in the past, and we kind of got bit. So I want to try and make sure that the people that we take care of, the people that elected us, don't get bit again. So that's where I'm looking at for, and I hope you understand that.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I'll just add that I have heard some calls about the product. I think you would probably do a really good product with RS15. RS20 is being proposed at this point. We haven't voted on it. We have a motion to defer on that. I'm going to support the motion to defer. I'd ask you to consider it. It may not work for your plans, and if that's it, but I think it is an opportunity to review it. I don't know if we vote on RS15 how that turns out tonight, but with that on the floor, just I'd ask you to consider that. And if you could, I don't know what can be done in 2 weeks, but if we could nail down some clarifications from the state on what can or cannot do with the sewer. If the sewer is not going to be able to be extended there without cooperation from private property owners that may or may not be willing to participate in that process, I don't know where the rezone leaves you, even if you do get the rezone. So if there's no other comments or questions on that, let's vote on the deferral for one meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed to deferral? Seeing none, that is deferred one meeting. Thank you, everyone. An ordinance, the next item is 9C, an ordinance to rezone from Commercial Retail Center, CRC, to Commercial Retail Center Planned Unit Development, CRC, PUD, and adopt the preliminary master development plan for Golden Bear Commercial being located at 10,000 Lebanon Road, map 54, parcel 97 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee. I'll make a motion for the item. Is there a second? Second, it is on the floor. I recognize our city manager, if he can update us on what's been going on in the discussion since this was last deferred.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Commissioners. I've got, of course, some experts in the field. Here are some of our staffers, but just a little, I guess, backstory before I turn over to Mr. Barlow is that we met last Friday, I believe it was, with the family and also with their engineer, and then, of course, others. I think our Vice Mayor was there as well. I felt really good about it. The proposal was that the city would cover the cost of the roadway improvements per se, and that the landowners would donate the right of way. And then I think Mr. Barlow had another idea of maybe some type of graduated thing. So our hope is that it happens sooner rather than later. We love to see the traffic improvements on the front end so we can get some construction going. Mr. Haddix and Mr. Barlow had talked last week about it may take us, as long as I think it was 4 to 8 weeks, maybe even get the state to review the plans for the grading plan, I believe it was. And our hope is that we're able to get this worked out so we can move forward and start making those traffic improvements on the front end long before the actual project comes in. So I'll defer to Mr. Barlow in case I misspoke.
Thank you, sir.
Feel
Mr.
really
Barlow.
good about it, though.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, commissioners, on this. Yes, and as Kenny spoke, obviously, I think the improvement in question is basically an enhanced type of right turn lane that would be an eastbound turn lane from Lebanon Road to Golden Bear Gateway. The idea of that has been looked at many times before. We've looked at trying to do something there. There's a creek in the way. And so with that being in the way, talking with Vice Mayor Justice on this, the idea of more of a slip ramp to go around the creek, which, yes, would come a little bit further into the site. So with that, we tossed around these ideas, talked with the developer on this as far as a timeline. For the city, time is of the essence. This is one of our poorest functioning signalized intersections that we have in the city. I would say it's probably second or third poorest functioning intersection that we have. Yes, it's slated to be widened, but the timeline on that is probably to be actually completed. I'm going to say, I would say it's hopeful thinking to say 5 years. We still got to acquire right of way. There's businesses to move, there's utilities to move, and then you've got to get through construction, which is not going to be an easy process. So with that being considered, I wanted to consider the benefits of what an improvement here would be. I have software that I'm able to look at myself, take a lot of the volumes from traffic studies that we have to analyze and see if we add a right turn lane, what kind of benefit does that provide us? From looking at it, as much as based on, of course, this is including some other development volumes in there, but assuming development happens around here, level of service at the intersection is, by the way, an F. When you add in all the developments in and around and just continual growth that we're going to have. And so it's very poor. Anybody that goes through there today experiences long delays, long queues. And so anything that we can do there is going to be a help. So by adding this, I was able to go through, and at least in the afternoon peak hour, subtract over 15 seconds per vehicle. And in that peak hour, you're probably talking about 1,500 to 2,000 cars. So that's per vehicle. That's averaged over every single one. Now, and looking at this as an apples to apples type of thing, I think this is the best way to look at it. Over the course of a day, I've averaged, we could probably see an average of at least 5 seconds saved. This intersection is probably right at about 25,000 cars a day. That's about 35 hours saved per day. That's a little over 12,000 hours per year. And if you say, by some miracle, we get this thing open in 5 years, that could save us over 60,000 hours in traveler delays over the course of that time. So as you see with the development, if their idea with this is they're willing to be patient and be waiting for the road widening to happen before they're wanting to do their construction. We as a city can't necessarily afford to wait that long to see better benefits and benefits for our people. We've looked at this in the past. We've come against, I won't say dead ends, but difficult places that were hard to cross. And so this provides us an opportunity of that. I know that we've discussed some different dollar amounts. Cost estimate, I believe, from Mr. Haddix, I think was about 150,000, if I remember correctly. Was that what it was for the turn lane itself? Obviously, there could be some other costs associated. That's construction costs. And with the idea of this, the city receiving the benefit of the construction sooner rather than later, my deputy, Matt White, and I were discussing this and came up with the idea of incentives. We incentivize or disincentivize projects all the time. If a contractor goes past a date, they have liquidated damages. Many times Tdot, we've done it before. We did it on Golden Bear Gateway to have an incentive to be completed, or at least a portion of a project to be completed ahead of time. There's a bonus to that. And so the idea is that we could, as Kenny mentioned, a public-private partnership, create that incentive, that bonus to the developer to get this done sooner rather than later, set an amount that the city wants to do, and just by recommendation, we could say, take the set amount, we set a completion date that's reasonable, probably fast, but reasonable, and then have that decrease by, I would say, something of the range of $25,000 every 3 months. This is up to you, but it's just a recommendation that we could set. We could set that dollar amount high, and then gradually over maybe the course of anywhere from 12, 18, 24 months, that dwindles to zero. Then it behooves the developer to do this sooner rather than later. The faster he does it, the less money out of his pocket. The faster he does it, the greater the benefit to the city and the more hours saved for the traveling public. Again, this is not anything new in the transportation field. It's new for us considering it with developments. I think with the time frame and the delays we have here, I think it's a very worthy consideration that we need to be looking at. Here for any questions on that.
Vice Mayor.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Barlow, Matt White, city manager, all of us, and the developers of the property. By the way, I love his truck. He's an amazing truck. I love that truck. There's been a lot of conversation going back and forth, and we have on numerous occasions asked whether it was Jackson Hills, Bradshaw Farms, Stone Hollow, whoever it may have been. We've been asking for off-road or off-site improvements to help get funding for some of these projects that we've got. The people in my district have been begging for some relief and traffic relief at this location. And so I believe what we've come up with is something that will get them that relief, at least to a large degree. And we can get that relief, and we will have it paid for by development as it was initially, or actually the way we wanted it to happen to begin with. I believe we wind up winning the entire piece here. We wind up actually with a win-win all the way across the board. Sitting in with the developers, and I'll be making this into a form of a motion. They've agreed that they would purchase or take care of the right-of-way. Now, one of y'all jump up and down and holler if I'm wrong here, okay? But they would take care of the purchase of the right-of-way. We would, I believe $150,000 was the amount of money that we were talking about.
Correct.
And they would try to get that done as fast as possible. So what I'm going to recommend here in the form of an amendment to this, and then Ms. Marchetti, if you want to help me out with any language that we need, would be that we would start out, we would reimburse, by the way, $150,000 for the completion of that slip ramp. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that would be as long as they were able to get that accomplished within 90 days following the approvals. I'm watching Mr. Haddix make sure he doesn't fall over the back. That's that accurate? Now, If for whatever reason, there was another 90 days goes by, that 150,000 would decrease to 125,000. And if it went another 90 days, and there's after the approvals, which would be 270 days total following the approvals, then it would go down to 100,000 that we would reimburse them. If it goes past 365 days, it would be zero. This is an incentive for them to get this accomplished in 1 year. Well, and obviously a whole lot quicker than 1 year.
I'll second that just because I got some questions about this, and if the city attorney has some better language recommendations, welcome that.
We'll clean it up. I
Well,
think that captures it.
It captures the essence that we're talking about. It goes to zero after 365 days. If it's not accomplished 365 days following approvals.
They're going to fund it and build it, and then when it's completed and approved, we'll reimburse them according to the schedule.
Correct.
You just outlined.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Approvals from
Tdot. So the process that we would run through, our staff would review and approve the plan. We would then basically write a approval letter that goes with the development team. They would take those plans, send them to Tdot. Tdot would then issue them the approval or grading permit. That's basically their formal approval that they would have before they could get started breaking ground. That I would say the Tdot approval.
Just a question, are you talking about on your timeline, is it approval or completion?
It's
Approval.
completion 90 days following approvals. I mean, the approval process is just going to be whatever it is. Depending on if we get involved with Tdot, it's probably 17 years. We know that, but I'm talking about whatever that date is. If it's 30 days to get approvals through Tdot, then from that point forward, it'll be when the 90 days begins, the 90-day intervals, actually.
Okay, so to clarify, when you're doing your timeline, 90 days, 180, 365, that's from the point of which the city has approved it and Tdot has approved it.
Correct.
Okay.
We can't hold them to, that would have been an impossible standard.
We would.
I
Mr.
was
Barr,
just asking Mr. Barrow, once the approval starts the clock ticking,
Yes, sir. That's my intention anyway.
then the next approval is when the city approves that it's completed according to specs, et cetera, and so forth. Is that
Correct.
Correct, Andy?
Mm-hmm.
okay, I've got, Andy, you probably want to stick around here. I've got
Sure.
Mr. Trivett to speak, and I've got Commissioner Mullally, and I'm sure they've all got some questions. I see Mr. Haddock's there, so you'll probably call on Mr. Hefner as well. So, Mr. Trivett.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for getting this at least on the agenda tonight as a positive project, because I know that these citizens on Lebanon Road do need some type of relief. Also, compared to the last meeting with these developers, it went from 75 to double. So that's definitely going to help offset that cost there. And also some initiative there to get it done as soon as possible. So I wish you all the best, you and Mr. Haddock's also. Mr. Barlow, I guess my only question is just to make sure that, that we are going to stay in compliance with Tdot. Excuse me. Yeah, I know.
Alphabet soup.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of T's there. But just make sure that we stay in compliance with, obviously Tdot with the future project on Lebanon Road.
Yeah, that's a great point, and definitely something worth discussing. I think the idea is that this would at least help that. I would say at least a portion of this is going to be developed as part of that ultimate project. You have different things that it could help with. It could help during construction. This gets a capacity improvement that pushes away from where the main construction is going to be going. This can stay open during that time frame. If you had something else, it might not be that easy to do. Sometimes construction, as you phase and stage construction, it can be difficult to maintain some of those travel lanes. This would allow that to be done while they're doing the construction. And also, at least while there's the likelihood that some of this in the radius could get reworked a little bit, I think the idea is that we would want to maximize the usage of this to maximize the public investment here. But again, I think even with that be considered, if this improvement is done sooner rather than later, the public investment is worth it for those hours saved over the several years that we would have this.
And my last question, if you don't mind, obviously during this process, there's going to be some disruption on that road. Have we thought about any type of deferring some of this traffic, or is there no possibility?
Thankfully, the way this is designed, it's going to be pretty much out of the way of the traveling public, the vast majority of it. Just the pavement tie-ins right there at the shoulder, existing shoulder that's right there. There's about a 5-foot shoulder where the bike lane is today. Where that's at would be the only disruption. You'd have some barrels there. It might cause some minor disruption. There won't be any lane closures, however. That basically you can't have any. It's too narrow as it is. So they have to do the work, probably looking at overnight work to get the tie-ins done.
That's what I was hoping for, the connection at night, so we don't disrupt
definitely
the main traffic. So I would just make sure that that's somewhere in the notes that we could be able to have that as a discussion as this project kicks off, that night work would be recommended if that's a possibility, because I know that's a factor of cost, but at the same time, you don't want to see this done during the day on traffic.
The off, basically everything that's not adjacent to the actual lane of travel, I don't think there's really any concern there. The nighttime tie-ins is really, which is very common. If you're going to tie in everything, it's done at night.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Mullally?
Okay, am I reading the map right that the back exit on Golden Bear has been moved further south that Commissioner Hefner wanted? Okay.
Yes.
That's good. I want to see this project happen. I do. I like it, and I appreciate everyone's hard work on it. I know that you've worked very hard, and what has it been, 4 months or something? Yeah. Okay. And then just to the Vice Mayor, this is a perfect example of why I nominated you for the Vice Mayor role, because of your experience and your proposal that you have on the table. I commend you for that. And that's why, perfect example of why I nominated you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Hefner.
Thank you. I can't tell from these drawings, but is that a left lane? Is that a left turn allowed on that southern?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would be.
So it is.
Yeah.
So you can't
Mhm.
left, and there's no turning lane there, correct?
No. Basically, with the what we looked at is the farther south it is, the less concern I have about it overlapping with the backup there from Lebanon Road.
Okay. All right. I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Probably want to hear from representation, Mr. Haddix. And I'll ask the Vice Mayor to correct me if I'm wrong on this. I have from the point of approvals, 0 through 90 days, 150K, 91 to 180 days, 125, and then from 181 days to 356, 100K. If I got that right. Correct me then, please.
91 through 180 would be 125. 181 to 270 would be 100. 271 to 365 would be 0.
271 to 365, 0.
Correct. Well, I mean, that means at the end of that 365-day period, 0.
Okay. All right, Mr. Haddix.
Good evening. Joe Haddix, 2305 Klein Avenue. I think we're all on board. I would just like to request maybe weather days, something built in. And I'll tell you what our schedule, like what we talked about previously, would be. I think we've committed to having plan to Public Works within 2 weeks. So we use September 1 for that date. Public Works is committed to an expeditious review, which they typically do. Let's just say by October 1, we are submitting to Tdot. So 4 weeks for at least one comment period. We submit to Tdot. Say Tdot gets us back in 8 weeks. So now that gives me the month of October and the month of November for Tdot approvals, which puts my approval clock starting at December 1. So now I've got December, January, February to try to pave 3 of the worst months to pave in. You know, they do make provisions for cold weather paving and whatnot, but I would need like some kind of grace. I mean, if our client's out there working diligently on this and we run up to 90 days and it's been 30 degrees for 2 weeks and I can't get a pavement section down, you know, I don't think that's any fault of his. And certainly, I guess we could come back and give status updates. I mean, Mr. Barlow gives you an update every meeting on projects going through the community. I'm certainly not to, is it a condition like,
I'm not sure what kind of grace you're looking for. What I would suggest maybe is that we look at an opportunity based on weather after an approval process that they go through with Mr. Barlow's team that says, okay, yeah, they tried, but there was 15 days there, you know?
Yeah. And that's,
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with that if Mr. Barlow would actually say that there was 15 days there that you were trying, but just were not able. I don't mind that if we can capture that in, and as far as an amendment goes, but I don't, please don't take our being nice here is a sign of weakness. And I would ask that this get going as fast as possible. Sure. and not, you know.
Vice Mayor, I think Commissioner Hefner has a suggestion that may move us along.
Sure. An attorney, but couldn't you just stipulate it would exclude force majeure events?
Exclude what?
Exclude force majeure, which are acts of God.
Oh, I went to Mount Juliet. I don't understand words like that. So.
One thing I would add, Tdot does have standard weather days built into their construction specifications. So when they have that in there, they have like month of February, 15, it's not 15, but it's several weather days. You know, like August, they have far less weather days built in. And so any contractor can go in there and say, well, it was wet, it was too soggy. We weren't able to go and put stone down. We weren't able to grade. We weren't able to pave based on the weather being too cold. They can be awarded extra days based on that.
And I get that. I just want to make sure that we've got some vehicle in place that we can monitor that. And I mean, I don't think Mr. Haddix has been one of the most upfront people we've ever had working with the city of Mount Juliet. So I wouldn't ever question your integrity. There are times though when, you know, you're not in control of everything that happens and, you know, those things come outside of your control. So I want to make sure that we've got some place, some way that we can actually maintain a monitoring system and make sure that it happens on a timely manner.
One other thing to consider, we say from the date of approval, we don't want to have the situation where they wait 4 years to get approval. So the way that we've been talking about it, there's a loophole there where they could wait to get the approvals. They could just lollygag, not get the approvals from Tdot for 2 or 3 or 4 years. I mean, I'm not saying they would, but there's a possibility of that. I just don't want to have that loophole and close that up. I kind of wonder if it may not be better just to set a date potentially that would build in some of those weather days. We could go ahead and build that in, set in a date. We could say March 1st, April 1st, something like that. And we could say, okay, well, you got to get it done by this time. I think the rest of what you have proposed is great. Like the 90 days going down to 0. But if you had something in there, it could build in, what if they run into having to move a water line? What if they have an issue with Tdot getting a permit, Tdot. So they could need a permit from Tdot. We don't know.
Can I make a
Um,
suggestion here, Mayor, if I may? What I would ask then, and we know that, we're looking at 90 days following approvals, and we're showing the schedule that lowers as the time goes on. Could we pass this with the condition that there is an appropriate and acceptable time frame based on your acceptance of that? And can we do that condition based on the Public Works Director accepting an appropriate timeline?
I
And moving
probably
forward.
prefer a date.
This is the first reading, if it is it?
Final
No, the
reading.
second reading, I'm sorry.
One of the issues here, usually in a contract, you're negotiating with a contractor to develop or build something. You've already factored in those additional weather days, as opposed to saying it's 90 days from a certain date. But in this case, we're saying 90 days, period. And what we could say, and I'm looking at a couple of clauses that I've used recently, if adverse weather conditions are the basis for a claim for additional time, such claim shall be documented by data substantiating that weather conditions were abnormal for the period of time, could not have been reasonably anticipated, and had an adverse effect on the scheduled construction.
So are you offering that as an amendment to this?
To your 90-day
Amendment. So this would be an amendment to the amendment. Actually, I would ask.
Before
Go
we do that, would it just be simpler to say the clock starts December 1st? And if you get approval before that, you bought yourself some extra time to work. And if you wait to December 1st, then you're on the timeline and you'll have to eat the weather days, or whatever a reasonable time is for approval.
Sure.
That way, if you fast track it through approval and do everything you're building extra time in for yourself. That's an incentivize you to go as fast as you can, and that can build in some time too.
It would prevent disputes on weather days. We could say they've got a weather day and they say no, and then we get into a dispute situation. I want to try to avoid that if we can.
I don't know what a reasonable time frame for approval would be.
So, and that's one of the reasons I was suggesting that them two to get together and work out that time frame. But I mean, if they're comfortable with the December 1st process, then
Clock starts December 1. You get it approved November 1st. You bought yourself 30 extra days.
Clock starts
Mr.
tonight.
Haddock's looking at us kind of sideways.
It's definitely going to benefit you.
My concern, look, Mr. Barlow's committed himself and his staff to working with us. So if y'all don't know, we have to work together to get Tdot permit. Tdot won't even look at my submittal package till I have a letter from him. So we got that covered. TDEC, we've talked through how to approach that, similar to what we did up the street behind Dollar General. So I think we got a solid approach for both permits. My concern is still, I'm trying to pave in December, January, February. I mean, we've had projects in this community that I have not been able to put a top coat down until mid-April. We waited all winter to put that final topping down or even a binder lift down. So I would feel a whole lot more comfortable if I could get till April 1.
Man,
I didn't make a
you
motion.
absolutely have till April 1. And then after that, if
I
you've
go-
got your permissions, then you lose $25,000 towards the project. So I mean, that sounds like we've got that covered too, right? Yeah, Mr. Barlow shaking his head, yes. So. That's 120 days.
I guess, so we said starting December 1st or January 1st? Which would,
There's been
Is-
no motion made. I
know,
just
just
threw a
discussions.
date out there and asked what was fair to the citizens and fair to the developer at the same time, because
I would say
this is a good opportunity to work together. And not trying to take advantage of them, but I'm trying to also take care of our citizens that travel that way.
Right. Well, and I think for this commission, one of the things I do want to state is that the faster we can get this done, the absolute best. However, having said that, we've done enough projects now in those winter months. February is almost, it's hard to get good working days in the month of February. That's traditionally our wettest month of the year. March is when Tdot changes their temperatures when you can actually pave. So it can be a little bit cooler and you can actually pave according to Tdot specifications in March. So then all of a sudden, a lot of windows open up. You have longer days, you have warmer temperatures, a little bit drier. And March is usually gets to be a really good paving month in there. That's my only recommendation. That's based. You can pave in the dead of winter. It can be done. We do it every year. Developments do it every year, but it can be tricky. It can be very tricky. It's a risk.
So we're saying the permitting process, we would give them until December 1st. I'd be willing to say December 15th in this particular case.
I'm open to whatever date is fair, that respects the developers and their generosity, but also looks out for the people that travel that way.
So I would say then that we give them to December the 15th to accomplish the permit processing.
Vice Mayor,
Sure.
if I could, maybe it'd be beneficial, and I think maybe for no one else, the city recorder, if we're going to make a amendment to the amendment for December 15th, if we could state the entire thing in its entirety one last time, because I got it wrong myself writing it down, and just make sure that everybody is on the same page with that. I forget who seconded the first.
I don't have it, that first thing.
Okay.
Which first thing?
We've only got one amendment.
We only got one first thing.
90 days, which is 91 to 180 days.
Okay.
I did
I'll
second that.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I said I'd second it because I had some questions.
Correct.
So
Sorry, it's a lot of discussion.
I second it, Vice Mayor, and if you would restate it, if you're about to make a
Okay.
motion.
Well,
for
y'all
the
wish me luck
15th,
on this.
just to make sure it's important that we get it right.
All right. Okay. The amendment would be that we would give the developers and their design team to December the 15th to accomplish the permitting process. From that point, they would have 90 days following the completion of the permitting process. We would use $150,000 of development-related funds for off-site improvements to reimburse them after completion. That's 90 days following the permitting process, the completed permitting process. On the 91st day, 91 days to 180 days, that amount would decrease from $150,000 to $125,000. Mr. Barlow, if you would correct me if I'm not stating this correctly.
I believe you're on path.
From the 181st day to the 270th day would go to 100,000. And then finally, from the 271st day to 365th day, being 1 year, if it is not completed, then the number would become 0. Is that correct, sir?
Would it be simpler to say after the 271st day, it's 0?
Yeah.
I saw the city attorney.
Okay.
That, and I might add completion and approval.
Approval of the completed product or project by our Public Works
That's
team.
correct. One thing I'd like to note with your March 15th date, so your 90 days from December 15th would be March 15th. And
March
so-
15th?
Yes, which by the way, spring break is the 7th through the 11th. So that does work out well with finishing that project with school traffic gone.
Okay. Was there anything else in there that?
It makes sense to me. I second it. I'll continue
Okay.
to support it. Mr. Haddix, do you understand what's on the floor?
I do. I feel better with those 2 weeks in March. There is one thing I failed to mention earlier. I think we're good on the dates and the timeline. With the slip lane construction, it slightly adjusts our layout across the front of the site. And if I could request a variance of up to 3 parking spaces from the code required minimum.
How many was that? We looked at that. It was
3.
3?
3. I think I figured out a way to get all but 3 of them back. Now, I will say there is future development to the south. As y'all know, there's area reserved, and based on our current conceptual layouts for that area, we would be overparked or could provide extra parking, which would in turn get this first phase back up to the code minimum.
Mayor, if I may add to this, since you seconded this, I would like to add also that we would give them a variance. And I'm not, Jennifer Hamlin's here. She may correct me. It is something we can do. If we allow them a variance on the PUD to take away those 3 lots, it would be eaten up by the slip ramp. Is that something we can do?
Absolutely. They have an opportunity to capture those in that future development, so I'm not worried about that at all.
Okay.
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so that would be added to Sheila, if we could.
Going to ask before I call for more discussion or a vote, I'm going to ask, make sure our city recorder feels good. I know it's
I'm
got
gonna
a lot
read
of,
it. Motion to amend the amendment made by Ray Justice. Approval and permit date starts on, I'll word this a little better, starts on 12/15/21. From that point, they would have 90 days following completion of the permitting process, and we would reimburse $150K after completion, which would be on 3/15/2022, with final approval by the city of Mount Juliet. Day 91 through 180 days, amount decreases to $125K for reimbursement. Days 181 through 270, amount reduces to $100K for reimbursement. After 271st day, the reimbursement is 0. Also, to give them a variance to take away the 3 lots that would be eaten up by the slip ramp.
Yeah, but it would be.
I will word this a little.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. I think you got the gist of what we're
I
looking
have
for
a
there.
feeling you and I will be working on it.
I think I'll be working. with
Bombed,
Andy.
blown apart, whatever we want to use.
and Mr. Barlow.
I do have one in the Public Works comments on packet page 59.
Is it related to this item?
No,
or
it's not.
Can we
You
pick
need to
that one up
finish
after we
that.
vote on this?
Perfect.
All right. Is there any other questions about the amendment? Questions or comments? All right, all in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Mr. Barlow, Mr. Hefner asked to be recognized. He's got a minute, and I'll come back to you on yours.
A motion for second amendment. This is going to take care of the force majeure.
No, what he said, yeah.
So an appeals provision. So any amount that is less than a full $150,000 reimbursed can be appealed to the city manager for consideration. So anything less than a full $150,000 reimbursed amount. So if they're in the penalty phase and they start getting less than the 150 reimbursable amount due to weather, tornadoes, flooding, then they can appeal.
Alien invasion.
Yeah.
I'll second that, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions on that item, on the amendment for the appeals to the city manager for anything less than 150K? That summarize that correctly?
That's correct.
All right. Any questions or comments on the item? All right. All in favor of the item or the amendment as offered by Commissioner Hefner, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
I'll vote for it.
opposed?
I can't pronounce it, but I'll vote.
I understand. That passes by a vote of 4 with 1 absent. All right, Mr. Barlow, you had a suggestion as well.
Yes, my apologies, Mayor, for jumping ahead. Packet page 59, Public Works comments number 4 and 7 are basically redundant. I believe the idea is that 7 was what the Planning Commission had agreed to out of number 4. So my recommendation would be to strike number 4. That was the intent of the Planning Commission. But number 7 would govern. That is discussing the right in from Lebanon Road and right out being conditional based on future connectivity to other developments. Those two actually contradict one another if left.
All right, I'm opening the packet here, so to get the correct page number.
Packet page 59, according to the PDF.
All right, I've arrived at packet page 59 under Public Works. Can you give me the numbers again, please?
4 and 7.
4 and 7. And yeah, after reading that, I'll be happy to offer that amendment on your behalf for page 59, 4 and 7 under Public Works, that those be stricken.
No, only strike number 4, number 7 to remain.
The 7 is right in is permanent and right out is a condition based on the following. The right shall remain until the development west opens up. Yep. I don't think I got a second, so I'll rephrase 4 to be striked and 7 to remain. We on the same page? All right.
Yes.
We got a second? Any other questions or comments on the amendment? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimous. All right, back on the ordinance as amended now 3 times. Any other questions or comments on that before we vote? It's taken a little bit to land this plane. All right, all in favor of the ordinance as amended 3 times, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously, guys. So, thank you, everyone.
Good luck.
All right, that I show it is 9 p.m. and that concludes our new business. Well, that concludes our unfinished business. We're on to new business at this point. Item 11.1. It is an ordinance of the City of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Code, Section 6, 21-108, powers and duty of city manager. Is there got a motion? You have a second? The item's on the floor. I'll recognize the sponsor.
Okay, I brought this for accountability to for the city manager to be able to make recommendations to the duly elected Board of Commissioners for any disciplinary actions, to hold elected officials accountable for mouse. Okay, said my tongue tied. Yes, and or abuse of power. So it's for accountability purposes.
Commissioner, I'm going to recognize
Okay.
Commissioner Trivett if you're finished. Commissioner?
Yes, Mr. Marquetti, I just got a quick question. So, how does this work out for, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was a second. Yep. So my question would be, for the city manager to be able to, in a sense, the way I'm understanding this, he would be kind of like, I guess, like the superior officer. Is that how that would work, or how would that? I'm just trying to understand this more of
Our
a.
city, let's recognize our city attorney.
To expand the powers of the city manager, that is a charter amendment and would require a referendum. So the city commissioners cannot do what this ordinance is seeking to do. However, the current charter, section 621-108, lists 10 separate powers of the city manager, and they're in your packet. And I believe this proposed amendment was put into number 2, where it deals with department heads and subordinate employees, which commissioners are not. So it would not fit into number 2. But number 6 gives the city manager the power to recommend to the Board of Commissioners for adoption such measures as he may deem necessary or expedient. So technically, under his current powers, he can make a recommendation to you that Commissioner Humpty Dump is guilty of malfeasance and all sorts of other things, and that would be submitted to this commission.
Commissioner, if I may, is there anything you read in the charter or code that prevents the city manager from making these recommendations now?
No, in fact, that's
So there's
what number
nothing
6
prohibiting
says right
this.
now.
So my second part
He
of this.
can't punish or
Yeah.
anything. He can just recommend.
Just recommend. And that was my understanding. So is there any other cities surrounding us that have this similar ordinance? Okay.
This is from TCA 6-21-108, and when our charter was adopted, it adopted verbatim the language from TCA for home rule cities such as Mount Juliet.
So my understanding, just so I'm clear and the citizens are clear, this is already in place that our city manager can make these recommendations already. So this is kind of a moot point is my understanding?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understood that correctly. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to withdraw.
I'll second that.
And we have a second. All in favor of withdrawing the item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Commissioner Hefner, you seek to be recognized?
Motion for a 5-minute recess.
I will gladly second, sir.
I could have used you 5 minutes.
Any discussion on 5-minute recess? If not, I'll call for a 5-minute recess unless there's an objection. Hearing no objection, we will be recessed for 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. Seeing all 5 elected officials at the table, we'll get him if we need him. Our next item on the agenda, the question was about the city attorney, and he's coming right now. Next item on our agenda was 11.2, an ordinance of the city of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Code, Code of Ethics, Section 2-350, use of municipal time, facilities, equipment, or supplies. I'll offer the floor to the sponsor.
Okay, motion.
Sorry, made a motion. Then we have a second. All right. It is on the floor, and I will now recognize the sponsor.
Okay. This is an ordinance to add a line on in it, and it has to do with the use of municipal time, facilities, equipment, or supplies. Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the City of Mount Juliet desire to the Mount Juliet City Code, Code of Ethics. So I want to add Section 2-350A to include the use of municipal time, facilities, equipment, or supplies is amended to add this statement, including making accusations and allegations without validity with merit as determined by the Ethics Commission Board after the completion of a full investigation.
I'm going to ask our city attorney to weigh in on this one. I got some concerns, and
You're changing the entire ethics code. You're injecting subjective terms into it. Right now, it deals with personal gain, misuse of city property, failure to report property and your disclosure statements, those sorts of things. It doesn't deal with any of the items such as false accusations and allegations without merit as determined by the Ethics Commission Board.
I guess my question is there a legal way that we could quantify those items?
No, that's what I'm saying. You're injecting a subjective item such as false accusations and allegations without merit as determined by the Ethics Commission Board. Before you get to an Ethics Commission Board, and you have to have an ethics violation that falls within the Code of Ethics. And that's why Commissioner Justice's ethics complaint against Commissioner Mullally, there was no investigation because racial issues are not covered by our Code of Ethics. It's similar if someone gives you money, Mayor Manis, and then that person says, I want to charge him with robbery. I don't have to have an investigation if what they said is I gave them money. I said, well, if you gave them money, it doesn't fall within the robbery statute. If there's no grounds for the ethics, if it's not covered by the Code of Ethics, then there's no investigation needed. So that's what happened with Mr. Justice's, Commissioner Justice's complaint. There was no investigation. No one was cleared. No one was found probable cause or anything else. It just flat out does not fall within the ethics code. And that's what this is, expanding it, not from personal using municipal time or resources for private gain or advantage. That's fine, and that's already in the Code of Ethics. But when you start adding to make false accusations and allegations without merit as determined by the Ethics Commission Board after complete and full investigation, it won't get to the Ethics Board.
Okay. Let me recognize Commissioner Trivett.
So thank you, City Attorney. So I guess my second question, and thank you for clearing that up for us, because I was wondering, because obviously me being a new commissioner sitting in, I actually read through the books that the HR department gave to me. And when I read through the agenda this week, and then also went back on my HR booklets. Ethics had covered all of this, except for the false accusations, which then that's why we have an ethics sponsor. Is that correct?
You have an ethics officer.
Officer,
which is
excuse me.
And then there's an ethics board. I conduct the investigation, and if it rises to that level and meets the thing, then I present it to the ethics board.
So in my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we currently already have all of these things already in place, just in different areas of our HR booklet that was given to us. Is that correct?
The ethics code is all pretty much together. It's
Yes, sir.
4, 5, 6 paragraphs,
Yep.
but it doesn't deal with false accusations and allegations, et cetera.
And that would then fall into the ethics side. If there was false accusations, then we would have our sponsor.
No.
That would do-
False accusations, there's other things. There's recusals, or I'm sorry, recall votes. There's censures that commissioner can say, I have a resolution to censure Commissioner Humpty Dunk for thus and thus and thus. And then this board takes it up and can vote to censure someone or not.
And so and just wanted to make sure that I'm clear. So there's already a process in place for this, for the false accusations.
Yes.
Okay.
Separate apart from the code of ethics.
Correct. Separate. Okay. Just want to make sure that I'm clear there. That's all I needed. Thank you, Mayor.
What I want to make clear, when I sent this stuff to Mr. Marchetti, I never once called that a complaint. I asked for him to look into it as an investigation and see if it warranted an ethics complaint or a violation. And if it ever needed, remember when we had that conversation, and I just, please just tell me down the road, whether or not this is an ethics violation, or if, the material that we were looking at was just something that was egregious and we had a problem with. That's, and you looked into that and came back with.
Correct. I
right.
called it a complaint.
Right. It was not a complaint. It was a request for an investigation.
I looked and said, this does not fall within our code of ethics.
Correct.
So there's no investigation to be had.
Correct. The material that we were looking at was an opinion. I classified it in commissioner comments as my opinion. There was nothing that I added to or took away. And the resolution that passed with a 3-1 vote clarified our position as a board, not me as an individual. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Hefner, do you have a comment? If not, I'll move back to Commissioner Mullally.
I do. No, I just want to get this on the record. So, yeah, when I read words like for private gain or for private advantage, making allegations without validity, these are all subjective. I mean, in order to determine that, it would have to be investigated. And this is saying you can't do it. Very subjective, and there is a conflict because if it's subjective, the ethics commission board would have to view it as a violation. So I can't support something that's subjective, and we have a process and a procedure in place on the books to take care of things like this. So that's.
Well, thank you, sir. Commissioner Mullally.
Okay, so tell me what the process is then.
Or you can file a resolution to censure another individual, another commissioner. You could move for recall, as one of the constituents mentioned earlier today. And there's one provision rarely used, I'm not sure it would be applicable, similar to an impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors, could remove a commissioner. The city commission could vote to remove a commissioner. But those are egregious. types of actions.
Okay. I'd like to proceed with the vote, just so it to be on record.
Okay. Any other comments before we proceed to a vote? Questions? I'll just say my concern, I think, similar to Commissioner Hefner's, is what it does is it makes it a little bit difficult to pin down exactly, or it adds a lot of subjectivity to it in there. So I won't be supporting it, but is there anyone else? All right, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the ordinance, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay. That ordinance fails on first reading by a vote of 1 to 4. With that, we completed our ordinances for the evening, and we'll move on to our resolutions. Resolution 11.3, a resolution declaring the City of Mount Juliet animal care and control property as surplus to be disposed of at Gov Deals auctions. I'll make a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Commissioner Hefner? All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Yeah, it does kind of look like a food truck.
Those trucks are 01 versions, and Mr. Potts on the one City Beautiful truck. We absolutely, that whoever gets those vehicles on Gov Deals, they still got some life in them, but we have used every bit of it. It's a 20-year-old truck, and
Pretty close to a food truck.
It
I
is.
mean, I'm sure
It
somebody
does.
could probably convert that to one pretty easily.
Mhm. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. Next item of business, Resolution 11.4, resolution declaring the City of Mount Juliet City Beautiful property as surplus to be disposed of at Gov Deals auctions. I'll make a motion. Is there a second? Any comments, discussions? All in favor of the item, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That passes unanimously. Seeing none, no opposition. 11.5, a resolution establishing rules and guidelines for the mayor and commissioners debate comments during Board of Commissioners meeting on agenda items. I'll make a motion. Have a motion and second. It's on the floor. Any comments, questions, or debate? Commissioner Trivett.
I just wanted to find out, will the minutes still be still be there for 5 minutes, or what was the?
This would not impact the ordinance that declares our time.
Okay.
Sets our, actually have it in an ordinance, and I know there's some questions about that. Our ordinance does give citizens the right to speak for 3 minutes, commissioners the right to speak for 5 minutes in comments, and our city manager 10 minutes. This would only impact agenda items on the agenda once we get to newer unfinished business.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All in favor? Commissioner Mullally.
Okay, because it does say debate/comments, but that you're not talking about
Correct.
commissioner comment time.
That's correct.
Okay.
I stated it that way, and whether somebody was debating or just making a comment on it.
Okay.
This resolution would not supersede our city code. I'll say would not and could not. I think the city attorney would agree. Getting a head shake in the affirmative.
Okay, so it's just 3 minutes and then 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, around and round
Yes.
till the discussion is ended.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir. Vice Mayor.
I want to make this clear here on agenda items, and this does not reference citizens, or not citizens comments, but commissioner comments.
That is correct. This would in no way supersede our city code on section 220.
So any change to commissioner comments would need to go through as an ordinance amendment, correct?
You would need to amend to section 220, or you can seek the path we did tonight by the suspension of rules.
Okay.
right. Vice Mayor, any other?
No, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hefner.
I'm sure it's in here, so forgive me. Is this only one time? 3 minutes?
No, sir. It would limit someone to the floor for 3 minutes. That would give me the opportunity to recognize someone else. Once everybody at the board has had the opportunity, or anybody that's recognized had the opportunity to speak, we'd start the process again.
Okay.
And honestly, the vision behind this was just in order to keep someone from holding the floor for 20 minutes. And under Robert's rules, I mean, Robert's rules is written in a way to protect everyone's right to speak. I think we've demonstrated that we give people the right to speak here tonight. A lot of citizen comments and commissioner comments. And this is just a way to move on if the majority of the board is wanting to move on. So this is just some rules to our debates. Commissioner Hefner, anything else?
Oh, good. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
There is under the, let me find it here. Third whereas, says once all of the elected body has had the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes on an agenda item, the mayor will continue to allow the elected officials to speak in 3-minute increments until the debate concludes. Under that section, that whereas, I would like to change that word from will to may. I've dealt with the law quite a bit over a period of many, many years. And the word shall or will means that you are commanded to. And I don't think that you need to be held to that through this resolution. I think you should have that option as the leader of this particular meeting, this commission meeting. It's an opportunity for you to be able to impose your leadership and protect the potential abuse.
Is there a second on the amendment? Got a second from Commissioner Hefner. Okay. Any questions or comments on changing it from, it was will to shall, or from shall to?
From will to may.
Will to may.
Right.
I tell you, Vice Mayor, I thought on that one too, long and hard, from what the right way to word that was. I wanted to give assurances to everybody that I wasn't trying to stop someone from speaking. That was my concern on that.
My thought process there is that you still have the opportunity to continue and do everything that this thing says. It just has that option if it were to be abused, and that's, be an opportunity for you to stop the abuse.
And I can definitely support that.
So each reference of will.
Just in that one section. I don't know if.
There's others.
So.
Whereas the mayor, the fourth whereas the mayor will recognize each elected official, and only one elected official will have the floor at a time. That's a matter of Robert's Rules of Order, but I believe that it's perfectly acceptable in the context that it's using that in the whereas section. Number 1, I believe, also establishes context, and the word will follows into the context. From completed his or 3 minutes, the mayor will recognize the next elected official. That also falls within context, and allow him to speak 3 minutes. Once every elected official has had the opportunity to speak for the first 3 minutes, each elected official will be given, may be given, would be a location. I believe that would be changed, because once again, we're going down to our mayor's discretion at that point, and an opportunity to stop any potential abuse further down the road. So gives you that option. So in number 3, the word will, I would ask to be changed to may, and be included in this particular amendment. And it would require, I guess, Mr. Hefner going along with that with a second.
Objections to change? Okay. Changing it in two places.
Actually, debate comments may continue in 3-minute increments. And that is actually changed per context, because if number 3 is changed, then number 4 would absolutely have to change. debate comments may continue in 3-minute increments per elected official until all debate comments are concluded.
All right, we got the motion on the floor to change will to may, the two places, okay?
3. And number 4 also.
Oh, number 4 as well, 3
Yeah.
places. Anything else, Vice Mayor?
No, sir. I believe
All
that concludes my.
Let's recognize Commissioner Mullally.
Yeah, I don't have a problem as long as, if someone as we circle around, as long as someone still has something to say, they're still recognized until, as you said earlier, until no one has anything left to say.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, there's a proper process for ending debate, and under Robert's rules, everybody has the opportunity to speak at least one time before that isn't even an option. So that's protected already under our city rules.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the amendment? City Attorney, can you just confirm for us when this will take effect? Next.
As soon as it's signed off on.
So, all right.
It's your next meeting.
Next meeting. All right. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Back on the resolution as once amended. Any other questions, comments, discussion? All in favor of the resolution as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Passes unanimously as well. Next item on the agenda is 11.6, a resolution to give elected officials the right to defend themselves if they are being accused of something that carries with it the intent of painting them in a negative light, which could potentially result in damaging one's character, name, and reputation. Motion.
Second.
We have a second. The item is on the floor. Give the sponsor an opportunity to speak.
All right. You mentioned an ordinance. So if I need to bring this back as an ordinance amendment, let me know. The reason I brought it as a resolution because I thought that the initial 5 minutes when it was entered into city code was a resolution. Is that right? Okay. So do I need to bring this back as a ordinance amendment?
Okay. I'm not seeing, just real quickly, where it mentions minutes. I'm just seeing to defend themselves.
I'm trying to understand what it is. I'm sorry.
All right, can I just read it so the public knows? I don't appreciate your snickering over there.
I don't think I've laughed a bit at this. It's ridiculous.
Well,
Continue, please.
yeah, we could talk about what's ridiculous.
Commissioner.
This is a resolution I'm bringing forth. The City of Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners desire to give elected officials the right to defend themselves if they are being accused of something that carries with it the intent of painting them in a negative light, which could potentially result in the damaging of one's character, name, and reputation. And whereas these accusations and allegations serve no purpose and have no place in the Board of Commission chambers. And whereas in the city of Mount Juliet, there have been accusations and allegations made by an accuser without a full and valid ethics investigation. Therefore, the official being accused has a right of equal speech to defend themselves during the same meeting where the assertions are made, even if they have already had their allotted comment time. And this is during the comment section. Whereas we believe the voters of Mount Juliet, Tennessee would not support any candidate espousing such accusations and allegations with the intent of bringing personal harm upon another official. And whereas while the Board of Commissioners has limited options in dealing with an official making accusations and allegations, but one of the options available to the accused is to speak out loudly and clearly in opposition to any such assertions and anyone who makes such assertions toward another officials. And now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners in Mount Juliet that we hereby express our opposition and do not condone any accusations or allegations to be brought into these chambers without first having completed a full and valid ethics investigation resulting in validity with merit as determined by the full ethics board. Be it further resolved, after the accused official has been given the opportunity to respond to these accusations and allegations brought against them and has proven that these assertions are indeed false by proving their innocence of wrongdoing, the official making the baseless and false claims is subject to being reprimanded, censored, and held accountable that comes with a sincere public apology. That's my intention for this resolution, is accountability. Really is what it boils down to.
All right, anything else to add?
There was one thing I thought about amending.
If you're agreeable, I'll recognize Commissioner Trivett and come back. to
Okay,
you.
go ahead.
Commissioner Trivett.
So I'm going to thank you for bringing this up. So I'm going to go back to the attorney again and just get some clarification, because there is a lot involved with this line item here in this resolution. Again, I go back to where me being fairly new to this board and reading back over my documents, as I have at least 4 times this week, and then 2 times when I was initially, before I was sworn in. It's my understanding that this resolution is covered in the Code of Ethics. Is that correct, City Attorney Marchetti?
No.
It's not.
Code of Ethics does not cover slander, defamation, accusations and allegations unless they pertain to personal gain and merit. It's Article 12 of our city code, and it deals with things such as any financial ownership or employment interests, which is a subject of a vote by the board. You should abstain if there's a conflict of interest. You should disclose your personal interests. Acceptance of gratuities, considerations, or favors for your vote. Illegal use of information, insider trading types of things. Use of municipal time, facilities, equipment, or supplies for personal private gain or advantage to himself or herself. Use of position or authority to make private purchases or cash, etc. No employee or official shall provide commercial or advertising endorsements without city approval. Outside employment that impacts or conflicts with your role as a city commissioner or elected official. That's what our Code of Ethics covers. It doesn't cover being arrested for a DUI, and you don't need a resolution to grant anybody First Amendment rights. They've got those. It's a given. Everyone has a First Amendment right. Now, you may have a limit on how much time you have to exercise those rights, and you see that watching C-SPAN. They're allotted, 30 minutes to do thus and so, and I yield, 2 minutes to the senator from so-and-so. So having a First Amendment right doesn't mean you get to exercise that First Amendment right without any limits. That's where it is. So if you want to give additional time for someone or suspend the rules for them to respond, then that's certainly within the purview without this resolution, which,
So my understanding, so I guess I guess I come back to this. What, I mean, like, is this a benefit back to the city and the board in any means? I mean, is there, because I guess reading through this multiple times, it's more about, I guess, it's very open, I guess, into interpretation of this this resolution. So there's a lot of, I guess, in my eyes, I guess, reading through this, there's a lot of confusion. So I just want to make sure that, that I'm not missing anything, but I'm having a hard time supporting this. There's a lot of different areas.
I'm assuming this grew out of the August 9th meeting. The August 9th meeting referenced nothing about personal gain or anything that was a violation of our code of ethics as it currently stands. So where you're talking about bringing in without a full and valid ethics investigation, there was no full and valid ethics investigation because there was no ethics violation within the meaning of our code of ethics. So, and Commissioner Justice brought to the attention of this commission, I guess he could have done a resolution to censure somebody for inappropriate language or postings or whatever. And then Commissioner Laley defended herself as much as I saw.
Yeah.
Without, I don't think anybody cut anybody off that meeting. I've watched that tape 3 times and didn't see anyone that said your time's up to anybody. I think the mayor was generous in allowing people to do what this says. So I don't know how you would enforce this, I guess, is my problem. It's like an unguided missile.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to understand is, would that be something that would be back to the responsibility of the city attorney, the mayor, the city manager, would be back to the board of commissioners? So that's why I'm having a hard time supporting this document right now. There's just a lot of uncertainty. So
if it would help, I'll prepare a memo on if someone thinks another commissioner is doing something not covered by the code of ethics, what possible sanctions or actions can be taken.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
There's no way I could support this. As in the previous, this is extremely subjective, personal harm. And the bottom line is this resolution is nothing but a means to facilitate bickering in this board meeting. That's all this is. A back and forth argument, playground, antics, and that's all this is. Under freedom of speech, you have the ability to do this now. We don't need to pass a resolution, ordinance, or otherwise. I can't support this. There's no way.
I'll say, having been on the receiving end a time or two, being characterized as things I felt were not really being portrayed with the full story. I think once or twice, maybe having a newspaper article thrown back in my chest while sitting at the table. I know the feeling of having your time expired and having to wait a couple of weeks to get your fair share in there. But at the same time, I realized our rules were written the way they were for a reason, because it's just very hard and very subjective to say whether it was a personal attack or it was bringing out the facts, or I was only talking about your voting record, or you did in fact do this, or here's a press release that was negative for you on years, or you said this or said that. I don't know how we justify all this stuff. I sympathize with you. I sympathize with you as well, Vice Mayor, on this. I've sat through it a time or two myself. Been on the receiving end, know what it feels like, and sometimes it's hard. And I would just encourage everybody. There's little to be gained from personal attacks. When it happens, it's it's kind of like when you point your finger. There's like several pointing back at you. You know, if you say somebody said something about me, then people automatically think about the time you said something about somebody else. And I mean, it sometimes screams hypocrisy, and sometimes it's defense. And I get it. It's emotions run high up here. We're very passionate about our feelings and what's best for the community. But I struggle to figure out exactly how this procedurally would work, if nothing else. If somebody would make a motion or ask, I mean, would it require a second to defend themselves? Would they have to be a vote on it? I don't know how this would procedurally work. I don't know how we would pin down and legally define what it is versus somebody just trying to get more time to talk. I would encourage anybody that feels they're singled out like that to make a motion to suspend the rules and request more time that way. If the board supports it, then let it. If not, I mean, we're gonna face the judgment of everybody who's watching this, and rightfully so, for the way we conduct ourselves up here in the business that takes place. And nobody moves to Mount Juliet to watch us argue. So anyway, Commissioner Mullally, I said I would get back to you. I think you had an amendment that you wanted to propose.
Okay. In a nutshell, this could literally happen to anyone on this board, anyone. So in a nutshell, what happened on August 9th was the mayor started with District 2, worked the way around, which meant the vice mayor had the last word. So when that happens on commissioner comment time, you speak your comments, that's it. You don't get to speak. So he knew that. I don't know who else knew it, but it was literally a setup, knowing I wouldn't get to respond. So when each commissioner gives their comments, I had given mine, my time was up. So when Vice Mayor gave his and he did what he did, I'm silenced. So in a nutshell, that's what this resolution is. If that happens, then I would like any person the chance during the comments to respond and not be silenced and have to fight later for a voice. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Commissioner, thank you. I will take this opportunity right now to publicly and leave no doubt that I was not involved in any setup to let anybody speak first, last, or any of these things. I'd had conversations with staff about the order in which we come to. And I'll point out, at the meeting before, you spoke last. And you took your opportunity to call someone out too. And they took it. I've sat through it. And I know what it's like to not have an opportunity to respond. It's the way it's game. And I'll say it again, comment times is you're not serving your constituents best calling anyone out. So there's always going to be somebody first and there's always going to be somebody last. Does anyone else have anything to say before we vote?
Yeah, actually.
Vice Mayor?
I did endure the meeting prior to that when we went through the burn ordinance. You'll remember how accusations were thrown out at that point. Myself and Commissioner Hefner have endured numerous attacks. We've endured them. We didn't say anything. You have also been attacked. I can't remember if you have or not.
One time.
Were you attacked? Okay.
One time.
Okay. So we've pretty much gone the gambit here. Been attacked. And I will tell you that I'm sitting here reading this particular resolution in amazement, because I just endured 10 minutes of a diatribe accusing me of everything in the world with the exception of attacking somebody on Mount Juliet Road. Accusations that were horrendous and horrible, all because I produced screenshots to this commission. How in the world I wound up being the bad guy in this situation. I sincerely have absolutely no idea. I will also tell you that the hypocrisy of this particular resolution is that if this were to pass, everything that she did in her 10-minute diatribe, she could be sanctioned for. I'm just amazed. And I'll leave it at that. And if we could continue with the vote, I would greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Mullally. Just
Sorry. One clarification on the burning, that was in during debate on an agenda item. That was not during commissioner comment time. So I didn't expect this to get any support, but I would like it to proceed with the vote so it can be on record.
Well, I'm gonna let it go. City manager. Was you asking to be recognized? I apologize.
Thank
Commissioner Trivett.
Just one last thing. I believe the city attorney was going to potentially look at doing some type of document. Is that still on the table, or is that just, what are your?
What can be done? A commissioner has done something that isn't covered by the code of ethics, but someone else thinks it's punishable or offensive or should be censured, et cetera.
Correct.
I'm still not preparing a memo saying here's various and sundry options.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure. I know that was discussed. I just want to make sure we can go back to that. That is something I think that we all have learned from this right here, that we, obviously we want to treat ourselves and our city with the most up respect. So just want to put that out there. So thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right. All in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay. That the resolution fails by a vote of 1-4. Last item on the agenda, resolution directing the city manager to schedule an off-site strategic planning work session with the Board of Commissioners and department heads.
Motion.
Have a motion.
Second.
Second. Which one of the sponsors would like to speak first? Vice Mayor.
I brought this up. We've done this in the past, and it was quite successful. Our school board here in Wilson County has done this, does this annually, and it's been quite successful. I would like to add also, I think there was conversation, myself and Commissioner Hefner sponsoring this, and in conversation, I think Commissioner Trivett was left off of there as a sponsor as well, because we're not able to get in contact with you. But our conversation has led to Mr. Trivett also would be a co-sponsor on here. So I think it just gives us an opportunity to get with department heads, staff, figure out what we're doing the next 90 days, what we're going to do in the next 180 days, and even into the next year. And kind of gives us an idea of what we can tell our constituents when they're asking us the questions. And it's just an opportunity for us to get together and do this planning session and get an idea of where we're at. I've said this numerous times. You want to know where you've been, you want to know where you're at, and you want to know where you're going. So, I mean, you got to start way back there and go forward. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. This is stuff that we've got to actually promote and move forward.
Commissioner Hefner.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to echo the same sentiments there, but you can never start planning soon enough. Before you know it, we're going to be 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So this gives us an opportunity to sit down with staff. I've got a lot of ideas and agenda items I would like to see with planning, with engineering, public works, several others that I'd like to talk through just from a planning standpoint. So, I support this and everybody getting together and maybe even having some fun, so.
Mr. Trivett.
So, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to First of all, I'm not going to steal the thunder from these two gentlemen, but I believe after I walked out of the August 9th meeting, I went to the city manager and me and him talked about this, where we need to draw a line in the sand and be able to somehow everyone get back on a common goal and work together as a team, because this is what we should be up here. We are a team. We have the best interest for our city, our neighbors, and our family. And so I'm going to let these two gentlemen steal my thunder, but it's my fault for not getting on the agenda item quicker. I have learned something to move fast or faster, but no, I really do support this because I want everyone on this board to feel like a family member, and we're all part of a team. So I think I showed that tonight and also the past several weeks and months by not always agreeing with everyone up here, but I do take every vote, every time that I speak, into consideration of what my neighbors and families and friends expect me to do. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mullally?
I'm not going to support it, and here's why. I think it's smoke and mirrors is what it is, and I think what we need is team building, not to go off-site in Sevier County, which obviously would have to be overnight or 1 or 2 nights. I think it's a waste of taxpayer money to go off-site to hear department heads plan a 5, 10, 15-year plan when I think they should be doing that anyway. They could do that here in the chambers. What we need is team building. And it could be done right here in Mount Juliet. There's plenty of things that we could do for fun to, have some fun, play disc golf and create some teams and do it right here. I think this is just a waste of taxpayer money, and we don't have to go off-site to have department heads present future plans. So I think if we could amend it, I'll amend it and change the name of it to team building exercises, that we could include the BOC as well as department heads. That's fine, but concentrate on team building, not strategic planning for future that can be done here. And whatever we do, it should be recorded.
And so could you restate your motion?
Okay. I motion to change the name of this to team building exercise for, if you want to include department heads and board of commissioners, as well as city attorney, and city manager, and stay here in Mount Juliet. And I don't know if it's appropriate to do all that, or just bring another one.
Commissioner, can I
Okay.
try to help?
Yes,
That's,
yes, please.
I don't know if you'll get a second on that because I didn't follow you.
Okay.
Your motion is to change the name to team building, correct?
A team building exercise for first, and then the content of it to stay right here in Mount Juliet.
I'm sorry, there was sidebar conversation, Commissioner. Can you repeat that?
All right. I think we should change it to team building exercise
Team
between department heads and board of commissioners. And the content of it is to keep it here locally in Mount Juliet, to have just some fun activities for the purpose of team building, and don't include any strategic planning with department heads and all that. That, to me, that's smoke and mirrors.
Okay.
And to have it videoed. Whatever we do, I think it needs to be videoed.
So the motion, though, was to change the name. To
And the content.
And the content to team building. Okay. Is there a second? Okay, it's on the floor. Commissioner Trivett.
That's why I second it right there. So we can get a discussion, because if we got to take this as team building to get past this, folks, then I'm willing to take whatever I can get. Beggars cannot be choosers. We've got to get past this, whether if it is communicating with our senior leadership with each department. I think that is some form of team building. I also think that we can be discussing some form of business. That's what the city folks want us to do. Continue on building the team, strengthen the team, but also be able to discuss business and what the future is of the city. So I think we can combine those two together and still be productive. Where that is, I think that should be left up to, I think, some of, maybe do a unanimous thing here, or however that's discussed. But what it boils down to me is, that if we can be able to simply have a team building and still be productive on this venture of whatever it's considered to be, then we need to get through that point. So, and that's my statement. So I think that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, Commissioner Hefner.
It's really not so much about the title as much as the agenda. I think we can set an agenda that includes team building. It really was my original intent for this, was it not? I mean, I thought by adding the department heads in there, we could also mix in some city business. But once again, as a co-sponsor, when you make statements that this is smoke and mirrors, this is implying that there was some ill will or some ill intention on my part for sponsoring this. That's what you're implying when you say smoke and mirrors. So again, the attacks are.
I'm going to chime in here. I understand what you're trying to say with the team building. I understand about the thoughts of going out of town. I disagree. This is smoke and mirrors. I'll tell you, we have been probably in discussions since last year about strategic planning on these things, and I'll say right now why I haven't pursued it any, and that's primarily because of COVID, and I just did not want to draw our department heads and city commissioners together all in the same room to discuss things. Thought it could wait because we got a lot we're focusing on right now. I, again, not opposed to doing any of this stuff. I like the planning. It's very much needed. I think the planning and the long-term planning needs to be the focus of this. I think we can build a team along the way while we're doing the planning as a portion of it. I'll just speak to the amendment, but I've got more to say to it after we vote on this amendment. Did you have something else to add about your amendment, Commissioner? All right, let's vote on the amendment, which was to change the name to team building and to include the department heads and city attorney, I believe was included in that. Okay.
Also to keep it here.
Keep it local, city
Not
attorney.
Juliet, and it be videoed.
Be videoed. All right, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Would the amendment fails by a vote of 1-4? We're back on the ordinance, excuse me, it's a resolution, not amended. I'm going to make an amendment here, and I'm going to ask that we strike the part about going to Sevier County. I don't see it as necessarily a waste of taxpayer dollars, but I do see it. I see the value as going off-site, but I do see it as an expense that we can avoid. I think we've got a lot of businesses here in the city that we can partner with, that we can work with. One of the things that we've always promoted here in the city especially is shopping Mount Juliet first. I remember with the designs with the fire department, there was some questions about why we're not picking someone local. In that case, we picked someone in Franklin. But this, I think we have the business. We've already had some discussions about people that we could work with, some things that we could be doing for us long-term planning, ongoing with the long-term planning, and of course it's just going to build. it's going to build the team along with it as a side effect, and I think it's going to be good press for our community. Sorry, I'm rambling on, but yes, just to state my amendment was to strike the part about going to Sevier County, and Commissioner Hefner is in agreement with it as far as a second. And our city manager would like to be recognized.
Yeah, Mayor, and I appreciate you. Appreciate the commission. And I agree. I think this would be good. We were talking about this, and Vice Mayor is exactly right. We've done these before. I know without doubt we can put something together this commission, this staff, and also the citizens could be proud of. And if you'll trust me enough to work with staff on that, to put something together, I think that you guys probably deserve. I agree, as I mentioned in my earlier remarks during my city manager's comments, that everybody's been under an immense amount of stress, and maybe just getting together to where we tamper down the stress a little bit, and it's fun, it's visionary, it's looking toward the future. You guys have done an extremely good job that it's apparent from the city accolades that we get from all over the country and beyond. City's high ranked in lots of things. If I could just recommend, if you guys would support me on just this one recommendation, is let us surprise you a little bit. Let us put something together we think you'll have fun that involves our local businesses, our local eateries, things of that nature, and just give you something to look forward to. And the same with our departments, where we don't come in on the front of it feeling like the weight of the world's on your shoulders and you're somehow that they're going to fail. And that way, then I encourage each of you to come with us to that of like saying, hey, we've done great, but here's some things I'd like to see as the vice mayor, as a commissioner, as the mayor. And trust me, this team that supports you and lifts you up, and the citizens, we'll put you something together. I know, again, it sounds hokey, and I apologize for that. I mean that, though, you're our commission, and we want to do everything we can to lift you up, because when we lift you up, we can't do what we do without you. And the citizens can't either. And you're exactly right. Sometimes these kind of things have to happen, but I don't think there's any failure in the past. I think the city has succeeded on every level. My recommendation is let's take it to that next level. Let's go platinum and beyond. And I know we can do that. As hokey as that may sound, just trust us to put something good together. It can include the team building, the strategic planning, and all above.
Vice Mayor.
The reason we talked about going to Sevier County to begin with, when myself and Commissioner Hefner were talking about it, was, and we did this, I think it was Henry Horton was one of the locations. Correct. Well, did Victory Baptist, we did somewhere else too, if I'm not mistaken.
1 year.
Okay, the community center. So this is so you've got some memory going on here. I will also tell you that because we were local, one of the problems we had was we had department heads that were continually distracted and pulled from the room and had to go somewhere else, and we would wind up having to make arrangements for somebody else to move over into their location, in their spot, time-wise. So there was continuous distractions because they were local and accessible. So if this is going to be local, all right, the department heads are going to be required to be there, and we don't need to have those distractions even available to them.
That's going to be my recommendation, a sergeant of arms.
Just hold them at gunpoint. Be fine.
Yeah. Sergeant arms, cell phones, emergency situations only.
Yep. We can compel them to be present.
Yeah. Texas.
Any other questions or comments on the amendment?
It's basically to strike the Sevier County.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. We're back on the ordinance as once amended. Any other questions and comments on that? Commissioner O'Leary.
All right, I motion to add team building exercises in here and have it videoed. Because it doesn't state team building, right?
Commissioner, would you be amenable to splitting those two?
Oh, in separate motions? Sure. Okay. I motion to add team building exercises in here.
Just trying to move it along. All right,
Okay.
we'll second it.
All right.
We have a motion on the floor to add team building exercises. Any questions or comments on this?
Real quick.
Commissioner Hefner.
Sorry, real quick. I think there needs to be a broader agenda that I would like to see to include team building. So, I mean, if we can have that, let's say within the next 30 days, that would, so yes, team building, but as part of a larger agenda, detailed agenda.
Right. Commissioner Trivett.
But still keep it a surprise for us somehow, some way. That's all I like to say. Because I like surprises, and I'm being for real. Seriously, folks. Kenny, you know this city. And you know what? I think no matter what we do, it's going to be a good time, and I think it's going to be beneficial to everyone up here. So thank you for taking that that next step for us.
I don't envy you, sir. Give us an agenda, surprise us.
Let us know what it is after the meeting.
All right, all in favor of adding team building to the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? What was your vote, Vice Mayor?
I'm gonna go along with the group because it's team building.
Unanimous. Our first team building effort by the unanimous vote on team building. All right. Mr. Mullally.
And to have it videoed, not live, of course, but just so long as it's recorded.
Okay. Is there a second? Oh, let me get your mic on there so it's captured. Your motion was to video record it, correct? All right. And did you have a clarification question on it?
Is there a second?
I'll second the item to video record it. What?
Okay, my question is, if we go play cornhole, and if that was your surprise, I'm sorry. Are we videoing that?
No. All right. So anything in a setting like strategic planning, team building exercises within like a setting like this, that it
So
would
if
be,
we're outdoors, don't video.
I don't see any reason to video that, like outdoor exercises, but in a
can run a relay
group
race.
setting.
Would we be prohibited from videotaping anything outdoors? So this is just to include the actual working portion of the I almost say agenda items on the strategic planning, but I don't know. I'm struggling to really put it in words as to what we're trying to capture here. I know just saying videotaping, and then the question is, are we commute lunch or whatever? Vice Mayor.
Could we just amend this to say that we would videotape all of this strategic planning?
Are you agreeable? Strategic planning sessions?
Yeah, but what if we just said any group setting, like we're sitting down talking? Period. Whether it's some team building exercise or strategic planning.
So we go sit down at a round table with a cup of coffee and we're chatting
Well,
about.
we're already sitting, if we're listening to department heads present their 5, 10, 15-year plan, right?
But we're going to be in a position where we may be taking a break and sitting around and having a conversation, and you want that videotaped? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Well,
not
I mean,
a, not
it's
a
what it sounds
break.
like. I was trying to say,
Any-
if there's strategic planning taking
interactive-
place, and we video.
Any interactive meeting that we're conducting with us and department heads that has anything to do with a setting for team building and strategic planning.
Yeah, tough question.
Has everybody had an opportunity to speak on this that requested? Because we got a motion to call for the question. I would like to speak on it before we call for the question, and I've not spoke on the item. I just propose that we ask staff to use their best judgment in what's appropriate to record and not, capture the sessions on that and leave it to staff's discretion. That would be my suggestion. And if it's appropriate, I'd withdraw my second for it.
Shadu, what did you say?
I said I'd withdraw my second for the amendment. And just say, let's leave it at staff's discretion to capture the business that's being done.
So if you withdraw your second, unless there's another second, then the amendment dies. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So, okay, so if we videoed the strategic planning part, then you would put your second back?
No. Having everyone spoke, there was a motion to call for the question. And I'll second the call for the question. All in favor of calling for the question, signify by saying aye.
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 Reaching 2/3 majority vote on that, we will move straight to the vote. All in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye as amended.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. And just so everybody out there is not miss out, we have one remaining agenda item, which is an announcement, a reminder of a discussion on 8/30/21 at 6:15 with County Mayor Hutto on the future of EMS transport inside the city of Mount Juliet. With that said, if there's no objection, we will be adjourned.